And it is 5:31. So we're going to start this meeting of the Jericho Selectboard, November 26th. Yeah, November 26th, November 16th. Boy, I'm starting out good tonight. Anyway, we always start with public to be heard, and I'm going to start with public to be heard first. And that is to say that if you notice that Wayne has now officially resigned, and we have a new select board member, and it is Joe Flynn. And we want to again thank the 4 candidates who responded to be interviewed by the select board and to fill the slot that occurred after Wayne's resignation. Tonight, the board introduces Joe Flynn as the 3rd member. We appreciate his willingness to volunteer and interview for the position. He does have experience volunteering for the town. He used to serve on the DRB, which will bring a good background to the select board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome, Joe.
Welcome.
Welcome, Joe.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah.
I was planning on having that song queued up.
Oh, thanks for that.
So I had the same thought this morning and I was like, inappropriate.
Are there any other public to be heard out there?
I do have one. Oh, actually, no, I'm all good. I thought I had a agenda amendment, but I do not.
Okay.
We're good.
So you don't have any changes in the agenda?
I do not.
Okay. And there's no other people for public to be heard. So what we're going to do is then start with regular business, and that is review and approve the front entrance door replacement. And I'm glad it's finally happening.
Yeah.
Because years ago, we actually, on the budget, put in a new door.
Yep.
And it just didn't happen.
Well, unfortunately, as you know, we tried to make the front entrance ADA compliant, which we did. The problem being the current door frame is rotten, so it gets a little, the hinges aren't fast, so the door doesn't close tightly. So the folks at Kelly came by to reassess. And the guidance that we received was that we needed to both replace the door and the door frame. Good news is the estimate in front of you is $1,700 less than the original estimate.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they went back to double check before they had the door shipped, and he realized that that the unit that he had ordered was different than the one he had originally given us a cost proposal for. So we are. Say again.
It still work.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we are seeking approval in the amount of $5,403.13 for replacement of the door and the door frame and the associated hardware.
Yeah, I'm glad that Maria is coming and participating, because when we wanted the door before, the Jet Force had a member that used a very similar system. And you know, you had to open the door. His driver had to open the door for him, and then we had to open the door for him after he left the
Gotcha. Yep.
So this is, I'm glad we're doing this.
Yep.
And you want to spend ARPA funding.
I mean, makes sense. It falls within the category of infrastructure. I don't see any reason why not.
Well, and it is, you know, it's $5,000 more than we had, you know, that we, unless you allocated some other portion of the budget.
Yeah. Yeah. There's.
So, do anybody else have any questions?
Nope, no, I got background done.
Pretty.
Yeah, same here. Seems pretty straightforward, and
You want to make a motion then?
I will make a motion to approve the front entrance door replacement for a project estimate of $5,403.
Second, do you have?
I'm good.
You gonna second it?
Oh, okay, yes, I'll second it then, yep, I didn't know if you were.
Yeah, no,
Yes, I will second that motion.
and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And just to amend the wording of that, that the money should come out of ARPA.
Great.
Pretend that was included in my first motion.
Yeah. Right.
So typically what we do is one of us makes
Oh, that's true.
make the motion, and then whichever other one of us doesn't, and then as usually as the chair, that's just how we've done it. Doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way we.
Okay.
So the heavy loads on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna corral us in.
And
Joe, it's your turn. Okay.
That's right. That's how it works. Yeah, and then, you know, I just get to say I'm always a favorite. But now we get to look at the cute one.
Thank you.
He's being
Oh, you mean him?
But he's being very quiet. I mean, that really is
Yes.
very nice for you to be able to,
It doesn't happen often, so don't jinx it.
So we should get on with the show, huh?
but thank you for volunteering. I mean, as I said, we are very fortunate that there are so many skilled people in Jericho willing to serve on the conservation board. It's really a board of peers in a lot of ways to be able to deal with a lot of the issues with the natural resources.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what you wrote is very nice, but do you want to expand on why you're interested in the Conservation Commission?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the agenda for all of those on the call. My name is Adelaide Dumm. I'm the recently appointed district manager for the Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District. I'm also a Jericho resident. I'm deeply invested in the community. I have a young son who's here with us tonight, Finnegan. We intend to raise Finn and Jericho and just want to contribute to preserving the ecological value of the town. And I think I'm a good candidate to serve on the Conservation Commission due to my strong educational background. I did my undergraduate studies in natural resources at the Environmental Science and Forestry School in New York. And then I recently got my master's degree from Paul Smith's just across the pond.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Are you an alum, Joe?
And yeah, and so and you know, at the Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District, I coordinate and run a variety of different projects, have a lot of grant writing experience and administrative experience with grants. From Lake Champlain Basin Program, the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts and Natural Resource Conservation Council, the Vermont Flood Resilience Communities Funds. We also have grants through a bunch of different towns and municipal communities. So I think that would be, you know, good expertise that I could lend to the commission in terms of seeking funds to move projects forward in town, in addition to just providing expertise in terms of natural resources management. And like you mentioned, it is a board of our peers. You know, I work closely with Karina on the Vermont Dam Task Force.
Cool.
I do, and do a lot of culvert replacements and dam removal projects up in the headwaters. So I would love to contribute locally, and I think the Conservation Commission just makes sense for me if you're interested in taking on new members.
I believe they are.
What do you think?
And the nice, you know, wonderful thing is, you know, you're a young parent willing to serve on boards, and that's a difficult thing to do.
Yes, I am very aware of my bandwidth, especially whenever I had been 5 short months ago. I was the conservation specialist, and then, you know, we went through some staff transition at the district and was asked to step up and be the district manager. So I willingly, gladly accepted the position. And, you know, it's not a lot to ask to serve on the Conservation Commission. There have been a few people around town that have approached me about it, and I do prioritize my family, but I also have time to dedicate towards serving our local community. Hey, Sabina. And I'm happy to do so. So
Great, thank you. Can you get a question?
you mentioned like some projects. Do you have some projects in mind that that you think would be good for the committee to advance?
for Jericho, you betcha. Yeah, so very interested in the Lamoille River, the Browns River, Lee River, you know, preserving our local waterways, incorporating floodplain resiliency. I run a program called Trees for Streams. It's continuous funding that we receive through NRCC and VACD, and it just comes down to finding a good plot of land where a landowner is interested in increasing their riparian buffer zone, getting volunteers, which we have a long list of volunteers who love planting trees and looping in the state river scientist, Stacy Pomeroy, to ensure that it's a stable piece of river or stream to plant on. But the Trees for Streams program is something that I'm really interested in moving forward. And also the Envirothon program, connecting with our local educators, getting teachers involved, or parents, doesn't have to be a teacher, to be a coach for the Envirothon program, which is an interscholastic competition for high school students, so 9th through 12th grade. And they learn about natural resources concepts, including wildlife, forestry, aquatics, soil science, and there's also an oral presentation each year. This year's oral presentation is on renewable energy and thinking about a sustainable future. So, I'm not going to jump on too many different projects, but those are sort of the two that I've broached with Sabina so far. But certainly if there are culvert replacements that need to be done for aquatic organism passage, I have expertise and experience in that realm. I'm going to be interested in doing that work as well. So just to name a few.
Do you have any questions, comments?
I do.
Yeah.
So in regards to water quality and so on.
Yes.
I've known, again, I work for a civil engineering company and I work with civil engineers daily basis. Water quality is always a thing, especially with storm water.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question is this, so, Jericho is inundated with agricultural. Most of the information that we receive is water quality, agriculture is the hardest impact. What do you, I mean, most of the pollution is coming from agricultural water.
Interesting.
And do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, we work hard to keep water quality in check in regards to, development, subdivisions, parking lots, and so on. And I know the ag rules are pretty aggressive on it too, but still, we're still battling an uphill. Is there anything you can add about thoughts on that?
Sure. So thanks for asking, Joe. This is sort of my bread and butter. So I am very involved with water quality management, outreach, education at the district. And this is sort of where my interests lie personally. So in addition to the many hats that I wear at the Conservation District, I also run an outreach and education program through the MS4 communities in Chittenden County, and I'm the project coordinator for the Rethink Runoff Stream team. So we focus primarily on outreach and education for urban areas with stormwater runoff. I lead a hardy task force of volunteers who collect bi-weekly water samples throughout the summer for nitrogen, phosphorus, and chloride. So in terms of agricultural runoff, the main contributors are obviously going to be nitrogen and phosphorus. Whenever you're in a more municipal area and you have stormwater runoff in urban, municipal areas, you're going to see that chloride concentration increased as well, just due to impervious surfaces. But, so I have a lot of experience in that arena and with outreach and education, in addition to like the technical side of water quality and training volunteers. But we also have an agriculture specialist at the Conservation District who I work closely with and now oversee, who coordinates with the agricultural community farmers to do nutrient management plans, to implement different best management practices on farms to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus. So there's a variety of different, sort of aspects that I have a hand in professionally in terms of that work. But I think it really comes down to just land stewardship. And it's interesting that you, mentioned that agriculture has the greatest impact. I recently attended a presentation with Keith Fritchie, who is the Basin Water Quality planner for Basin 8 for the Winooski. Karen Bates was his predecessor. I think now she's over in Lamoille. And, it was just I think the drive home point was that there's multiple different factors that contribute to our nutrient loading and TMDLs into Lake Champlain. But our floodplain resiliency is the sort of key to having a reduction. I think in terms of what you can get done, the agricultural sector has done a lot and sort of accounts for the biggest percentage of moving that needle. But there's a ton of opportunity with floodplain resiliency and riparian buffer plantings and restoring our river corridors, because as our stream banks erode, especially with increasing floods, we see a lot of phosphorus pollution. And that's sort of, I think, on everyone's mind in the Vermont water quality sector. How can we reduce phosphorus into Lake Champlain?
That seemed to be one of the discussions after all the flooding this summer and the amount of erosion. That,
Yes.
Yeah.
So very interested in implementing more stable riparian buffers along the waterways in Jericho and elsewhere within the Winooski Basin.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I was a little rambly, but
That was
we do a
very
lot
nice.
of work at the district. Okay,
Oh,
good.
That's very good to be through. Any
Great.
other questions or anything, comments?
Yeah.
Well, considering they have openings on the, do we have is there, specific?
Term?
Her term is expiring in 2025.
Correct.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Adelaide Dumm to the Conservation Commission with a term expiring in 2025.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Sabina.
Thank you for,
Adelaide,
Now you gotta go to work.
yeah, that's right.
thanks
Oh.
for contributing.
I've got my work cut out for me already, but happy to contribute more. Yeah.
Well,
So I did have one other question, but it was just a follow on. Doesn't Trout Unlimited also have a program where they do the trees on the side of the stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a meeting with Clark. What is his last name? Next month in Montpelier with all things Trout Unlimited and, restoring floodplains and Friends of the Winooski River too. We're sort of like the three big organizations that are doing work in that order. Yeah.
A little bit of brook frontage, I guess you would call it, and it's quite a while ago now, but I think it was Trout Unlimited that came and did some plantings along.
Awesome.
Nova.
Yeah, that's great. It's good habitat up there. Cold water refuge, I think, is something on everyone's mind. I work a lot with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service and Vermont Fish and Wildlife in terms of prioritizing our waterways in terms of habitat preservation. So we can connect on that another time because I don't want to monopolize. I know there's a lot on the agenda this evening, but yeah, we're certainly involved with TU as well.
Not true.
Oh,
We're gonna, well, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say, we can move on to other parts of the agenda.
Yeah, I invited Matt because Matt is joining us remotely and it seemed like he could be here much later if you were to be part of the second part of the meeting, so.
Okay, so are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to move stuff?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, if there was a change of the agenda, we could, early on, but yes, we can. So this is the, assessment, the organizational assessment.
Correct.
Yeah, I think given that we have time, we could, because basically it's on the agenda, it's just whether we shift it before or after the town plan public hearing. So,
I will leave that to you, Madam Chair.
I guess, rather than.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I think hopefully somebody that was not planning on going to the town plan part, but was interested in that, doesn't just try to sign on around 8 o'clock and hopes to hear about it.
Right.
That could be fine with me.
I think we need to move on so it's not so late tonight.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
having me and for
Bet.
voting me on. I will stick around for a little bit, but I'm gonna have to excuse myself at some point
At your
for
We-
book,
we
bath,
understand.
bedtime, all the
Thank you
things.
for willing to be a volunteer.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, he was a wonderful guest at the meeting.
He was
Well,
amazing, buddy. Who are you trying to impress?
I said, we're deciding on the town plan, it's gonna be in place for the next 8 years, which is basically the time you're gonna live here.
Yeah,
You should be at this meeting.
yeah.
Didn't even look at it.
Finnegan's involved. He's interested.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks
Is
for
anybody
coming,
else-
Finnegan.
All right. Lead on, John.
Okay, so next for consideration and review is the organizational assessment proposal provided by Matt Young from Ascent Consulting. Matt, can you hear?
I can, yep.
Great, wonderful. Thanks for being here, Matt. For folks who are joining us, if Matt's name seems familiar, Matt has also been working closely with the select board to help organize and assess our needs for a new town maintenance facility. Matt has been an integral part of doing future needs assessment and has provided some early design work that would be part of an eventual implementation program. So Matt, thanks for being here. Yeah, I guess so the select board was provided the proposal that you and I have been discussing, and I don't know if you want to go through it categorically by task. I can start off by creating a little context. So the select board has been in discussion for, well, pretty much since I've arrived, about the need to better understand our support needs, given some big ticket projects that we have coming, and given our rather limited capacity for grant management and project management, primarily being Linda Blosh, our town planner, and myself in my role as town administrator. We are finding that given all the other given the tasks at hand and trying to manage projects and seek grants whenever we're able, we could definitely use support so we can find further grant funding and have helped to advance some of the bigger projects, specifically the town maintenance facility in the next couple of years. We're in the process of a scoping study for a community wastewater in our village centers. And yeah, those are kind of the two biggies, and affordable housing.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you could talk a little bit, Matt, about similar work you've done in other municipalities and what your approach would be.
Sure. So I broke this down into 4 tasks, and task 1 would be to identify the workload for each folks, within the organization. And I do this I use a spreadsheet called smartsheet.com. And what's nice about this tool is that, for instance, I can put down, John's name at the heading. And then what I would do is underneath his name, I would identify his day-to-day tasks. And then, he'd have to let me know how many hours it normally takes him to do his day-to-day on a weekly basis. And then I would have another subtitle underneath there for special projects. So these are maybe, like he says, going after grants, going after, special projects. And then I would identify, the deadline for that time, and then how many hours it would take to achieve that. And that would be done with each person. And what that helps to do is to help to analyze the workload of each person and each department. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the focus,
and you can,
Matt, I just wanted to clarify. The focus would be at this point primarily the planning and zoning office, and then our office being the town administrator's office, which includes me and Paula in her assistant town administrator role, and Amy Morse, who manages and coordinates finances on a day-to-day basis. So this would not include the highway department at this point.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. And then that kind of helps to really shake out the workload and what the tipping point becomes for when, the staff is, being, overworked in a sense, or their schedules and workload is getting to the point where it helps to identify if you need help or not, or assistance, for that staff person. And then task 2 is to do a comparison amongst your other peers of other communities. And so I do reach out and I look at, the size of the community, and it becomes like a comparative analysis of, what are their FTE for that community as compared to Jericho. And there could be 5 or 6 or 7 communities that are in a similar size. And then you'll see that in the spreadsheet and how you compare to the other folks. And then task 3 is basically to take all that information, bundle that into a report, present it to you, and then usually there's normally a follow-up or adjustment that need to be made, and then I would present a final report from that feedback. Any questions?
I have a question for
You got your-
Yeah.
Can I get a background of why we're doing this?
Because that one, we've talked about it for quite a while, that it seems like with all the projects coming up, it's hard for the staff to manage them.
Okay.
Because some of our, like Linda's,
So it's really quite simple. We're looking at using this because we don't have a staff efficiently public handle this, and we want someone with expertise in doing it.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly, and plus to delineate where we could use assistance in the town hall itself, because we've taken on more and more projects, but like when we had Todd as the town administrator, because of his background, he was able to act as project manager. And Catherine Sonic came from Milton, and she was dealt with a lot of that herself. Our new staff, although qualified, and are good at what they do, that's not their comfort zone.
Not a bandwidth on it, okay.
And so, the fact that, we're adding more grants, we have we're spending ARPA funding, it's important to look at, and now we're talking wastewater and all these other projects.
So this is just regard to the new highway garage. This is for everything that we're kind of looking at on capital plan possibility.
Right.
Okay.
The staffing, separate his name from the town garage. And in fact, as we ought to recognize that you have tried to get, because this is a $10,000 ask, and that typically you try to get at least 2 bids. We have tried for.
Yeah, Nemrick has unfortunately fallen short, not once but twice now, so.
And so, that's, and given that, and the other thing is, when it comes to our fiscal policy, consulting contracts don't necessarily fall within requiring multiple bids.
Right.
Yeah, so I think Catherine said it well. I mean, to me, it's, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the Planning Commission and the Affordable Housing Commission, and I see SJ has her hand up, so we'll call on her after I get a chance to blab for a bit. But we've heard, we need to add more capacity to government. We need more government capacity. And when we agree, okay, so where do we at it? And so looking at, so I think a lot of us have thought, well, the best place to know where to add it is to see where we're at right now. If we had tons of grant writing capacity, well, we probably wouldn't want to add a grant writer if we had, and so I think I think we as a select board, I think we need to start thinking about how we start to expand our staff. And I think this is step one for that. We'll get some recommendations and whatever.
Yeah, okay, so now I understand what this is for. Perfect, okay.
And then, well, a few years ago, we finally bit the bullet and put a civil engineer on retainer.
Right.
Because we needed that, and I've been pushing for, I told it was person for years, but at least that helps satisfy some of those needs.
Yeah. And SJ, you had your hand up patiently.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that I thought the town plan was at 5:30 because I would have missed this otherwise. So I have a couple of questions and I'll just fire them down quickly. Is there a proposal that Matt, and I'm sorry, I forgot your last name already, has put together to kind of explain what this audit or this assessment would look like? Is one thing that that the public can view. The second is, would this also extend to select board members or just staff? And then my third question is really trying to tease apart a little bit more about what you'll be assessing, and in particular the, comparing to peer communities things. So, are you also looking at job descriptions and responsibilities? Do you have any kind of productivity measures and efficiency measures that we could use to kind of assess? I know folks are working really hard. Could they be more efficient, or is someone in a different community who's doing this job doing it really efficiently, and they have this job description or this set of skills, something along those lines? And also assessing the expertise of the individuals that are working for us compared to other towns, and then taking the larger picture in terms of the scope of the projects that we are taking on in the next 5 to 10 years, and looking at communities that are currently working on that level of project and are having to operate at that bandwidth, and not just comparing us based on population or current size of our select board or something like that. You don't have to answer all of those questions. I know that's a lot, but those are things that I would be really considering carefully when you all make this decision.
We can answer one of them. No, it is not to do with the select board. It's strictly about the town working capabilities.
Matt, did you get all that?
I did. I can answer some of them because
sorry, Matt, I've been thinking
it.
about this a lot.
No, that's fine. I did do a full-fledged municipal-wide organizational assessment for the town of York, Maine, but this one I've been asked to do would be more narrow. So I'll be really concentrating on, like John said, his role, Paula, and the planners. So they basically like the office, where for other municipalities, I assess, the police department, the fire department, the public services, and then all the folks, whether it's the town clerk, the town manager. So that, so that's one side, but this, I was asked to do more of a narrow zoom in assessment, what this proposal is based on. Then when I do the comparison, I don't compare just the population, but I also compare the tax base, and I also compare the staffing for that each town. And so I look at it as an FTE, because they may have someone who plays two roles. Some towns, they have folks who are playing two roles. One does one part-time one role and part-time the other role. So that's why you got to factor that in, as part of how they're structured. And then I also look at comparison of the budget of each community. So we'll compare Jericho's budget, annual budget, compared to another. Then how do they compare to I do like a ratio study of FTE per money spent or per tax base, and also per population of that community. Does that make sense?
Guess I'm wondering
I don't know, did I
more
answer?
about some of the metrics, the performance matrices and expertise, and in trying to think about not just staff hours, but and money spent, but really about what are our specific area needs and manpower needs, and how are we meeting them, and how are other towns meeting them, and what kind of metrics, if any, do you use to do those comparisons?
Yeah, that can be done, but that's a different analysis, because that also gets into the salaries, which I've done in the past, is you compare salaries of all the positions compared to others, and then also you also have to compare it to the private sector too, because that's who you're really kind of competing against at times when you're trying to hire or retain your staff. So that can be done, but that's not what I was asked to do for this proposal.
And I'm not convinced I'd be comfortable with a public report of individual productivity, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be comfortable with making that public. What I think about this.
That too. I'm just trying to figure out how to answer are you gonna walk away with the answers that you need to make whatever decisions you need to make? I don't need to know anyone's productivity level, but
Yeah.
I just throwing it out as I don't know.
This is not the town plan meeting.
Oh, it's 6:30 is the town plan.
Here? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, SJ, both came in.
SJ, I can jump in for a sec by way of clarification. I mean, I think well, two things. I want to go on the record by amending something that Catherine said in reference to Linda's experience. Linda has a lot of project management experience in her role with Northwest Regional Planning.
It's a different.
She, worked, so being a town planner, and of course in her first year inheriting the mantle of updating and amending the town plan, huge push, huge learning experience. My experience with her on a day-to-day basis, managing numbers of grant-funded projects, is she's extraordinarily skilled and organized. I think the type of support that we are hoping to hear more about relates more specifically to having time and specific expertise around identification of grant funding sources, having the time to pursue and write grants, and also the larger issues that go along with big construction project management, things like affordable housing, things like building wastewater facilities. Those particular areas of expertise don't currently live within this house, and I think in some ways we whether that's consultants, whether that's full-time positions, part-time positions, that's really what we're trying to discover. What are our needs looking forward, and how can we best meet them all given what we know about our current resources?
If I may, just to go on the record to say that I apologize if I was inarticulate. In no way do I question the qualifications or the level of work that everyone in town hall does. Those not what I meant at all. But I think what you just articulated is exactly what and as this isn't the work that I do and is the work that Matt does, he's much better placed to come up with how best to answer those questions, because I 100% agree. Those are the questions that I think the town would really benefit from having answered.
And to get to your first question about the proposal, I can share the proposal with you. I don't know how interesting it would be to put on the website, but I don't think there'd be any reason why we couldn't.
I mean, it's money we're going to vote on. I mean, it's public document.
Yeah.
It's in our packet.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you.
You had something to say?
Yeah, I just think this is a good idea. We're gonna get an unbiased review of everyone. If we try to do something like that, this internal, everyone knows everybody, so it's a little, it's say whatever you want, it could be biased. This is an independent review of our capabilities moving forward and so on. And, you know, even at 10 grand, it's still cheaper than hiring someone as a full-time employee.
It's a lot.
You know, so I think it's.
That way you know what to hire.
Well, exactly. So again, I think this is a good idea, especially since I'm seeing all this push of we can't get stuff done. I mean, so, and I just showed up. So I think it's a real good idea. I don't know who came up with it, but I like it.
Yeah, and Matt, I hope that you can kind of look as you're performing this, and should we happen to approve it, as you're performing it, that you do kind of look at it with that in the back of your mind. Like if I were gonna add a position to this staff, and I could only do one, or I could only do a half position, or
Two halves.
or whatever, where would you, as your best assessment, where would you put that person? And I think that to me, it probably oversimplifies what you're gonna give us, and I know we're gonna get a lot out of it, but to me, that's a big question where to answer. I'm more convinced that we need more staff, but I don't know where I would add it. You know, I'd like 3 limits. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe you'll look at it and go, no, you need more. We need more in the finance department. Like they need more help. You know, I don't know. And so I think that's what I think.
And it could be 250, you know, 2.5 times of very different aspects. One that may have some wastewater capacity.
Well, so I guess the question I have, will it also, based upon this, will one of the results be not only possibly where to add, but what kind of background they would have or should have?
I would like that.
Would that be part of it?
I mean, if we can add to
Matt,
that, I would like.
Are you here? So
Because that's what we need.
my understanding, Matt, my understanding based on our conversation is part of the comparative analysis that you would do would evaluate not only current roles and responsibilities as outlined for admin team positions here. You would see how those stack up against municipalities of similar size, and that would also include qualifications and background of current staff, critical skill sets, and that sort of thing. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not going to mention this one town, but there's one town they took a very unique approach when they had overload of special projects, and so you kind of, once you see the spreadsheet, you'll see that kind of pop up of how they took care of those special needs, you know, at a particular time, and you know, so yeah, so that would be part of it, yes.
Great.
Any other questions?
Well, let me add one more thing though. One thing that also a lot of people sometimes don't think about is, yes, you may spend 3 or 4 months going through a grant application, but then once you get that grant, a lot of these grants require specific follow-ups, and that it makes sure that you're in accordance to that grant agreement. So that itself is it takes a lot of time to make sure that you're doing it right. Otherwise, you're not, you know, if you don't do it right, that there's a lot of legal issues. Because I have helped other municipalities where I did not get involved in getting the grant, but I helped in making sure that the execution of the grant agreement was done properly. Does that make sense? So it continues on. So it doesn't, just because you got that part of it done, well, then now you got to do the phase 2, which is, well, how are you going to execute it? And it's got to be done, and someone's got to do it.
Agreed, Matt. I don't think you'll get any argument from Paula, Amy, Linda, or I.
No, I mean, because particularly when you're doing federal grants for water quality, there's a lot of things that you have to be compliant. So we can just get together to apply for that particular grant. I missed that one. You couldn't sign up.
Would the funds for this one, John, come out of our audit, or do we have an audit budget or a consulting budget?
We do have a consulting budget, and I don't know, I actually hadn't thought about what line item or cost center this would come from,
Yeah, if we still.
or whether it could be used, because it's sort of a structural
It's a
assessment.
consultant, so we could use the consulting budget that comes from the select board.
Do we need to, probably don't need to include that in how we're funding it in this particular one unless we're going directly out of our budget, I'm assuming?
Right. Art's the only one that you directly got, but this way you can, make the motion to accept as is, and Brian figures out which consulting tag comes out of.
He's good at that.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the organizational assessment by Ascent Consulting. For the
Ascent.
where's the number? I thought
Oh,
it
it's
was 10, is it 10,000?
it's 10,000.
Wasn't in front of me, like,
Lump sum,
for a $10,000.
I'll second that.
all those in favor say aye.
Okay. Oh, one question I forgot to ask, Matt, when would this happen?
It could happen immediately. Let's see, probably not this week, but after Thanksgiving, we could start.
So the hope, the initial goal when we entered into discussion with vendors was hoping that this could inform some of our budget decisions as we move toward the
Yeah,
development and finalizing stage. So that gives us a relatively short,
Yeah.
about an 8-week-ish window. So the hope, the hope and what Matt has been communicating is that he should be able to move fairly quickly. And I think the other benefit is, while it's not a focus for this particular study and audit, as we move ahead with the town maintenance facility planning and start thinking about implications around needed capacity, he'll be intimately familiar with both sides of the house as they so just wanted to include that.
Thanks.
well, thank you, Matt, for your presentation, and look forward to working with you.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thank you very much.
I'll be in touch after the holiday.
And remember, no.
That'd be great.
reviews.
All right.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm signing off.
We only have 9 minutes to the time certain for planning for the public hearing. Is there anything else that we can get done in 10 minutes or 9 minutes or less?
Minutes.
Let's.
Try to do the minutes, 11:02.
We could, we might want to ask more questions about, the old mill and stuff like that. It might take longer.
Yeah.
So you could do the minutes so that, that would make it easier for us to get through late tonight, not have to be quite so late.
Well, I'm sure this audience would love to hear our
Yeah,
review of last meeting.
This will be a window into the part of
Yeah.
select board meetings that rarely anyone hangs around to see. It's gonna be exciting, people.
yeah,
You're gonna love it.
all right. It's just you and I.
I'm gonna be honest with that, I didn't read them.
But I can't vote.
Well, you,
I intended to, but I flew in late last night and I started work early this morning until I came here.
well,
So
that's
I
right,
did get-
isn't that a nice vacation? We didn't get
Yeah.
a chance to talk about. Anyway, there's very little changes. The only thing I was gonna ask, one question I was gonna ask you about is on page 80, line 81. I would like, because I had done the questions that we asked, right, you know, for the individuals. I would like the questions to be included in the minutes, because if somebody doesn't want to go back and stream MMCTV, this at least the end of the background questions that we asked, you know, that we followed up with in public.
Can
Yeah,
can
so
we,
would we, so what are you looking
I'm
to
just
have?
looking just the questions that we,
Not the response.
not the responses. The responses are part of executive session because it has to do with appointees and appointments that we do.
how would those appear as an appendix? Can you do that?
Don't just,
Yeah, I think it could work. I think right before line 82 where it says
Yeah.
Sarah McLeod, I think right before there,
yeah,
we could add a thing that said
yeah,
all candidates were sent
these questions,
these questions and then they came in. I think that would help somebody,
yeah,
you know, if somebody in 40 years goes back and reads
Yeah.
every single meeting's worth of
In-
minutes, they would be able to.
But you want people to be have, you know, the minutes are very good, but you want it, if somebody was just relying on the minutes, you want them to have some background. I mean, basically, you just use what you sent
The
us,
document,
the document that you sent us and say, these are the questions.
sure. And I think Paula has those, so we can.
Yeah, I would, because I think that that's just helpful, but the answers, the written answers are part of an executive session discussion.
Great.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right, line 339, we have. I said, we're talking about, we're talking to Peter Booth. And in the middle of line 39, 339, it says Joe said.
So that's Peter,
It's gotta be Peter because down below it says Peter said,
right?
so. Don't know that, that's what it works for in his mouth.
Got it.
And then 593, it would have been nice had we actually exited and adjourned at 12:06, but it was really 11:06.
It was.
Wait, did you say line 593?
5:43.
Oh, 543,
Not 10:06.
1106, gotcha.
Yeah, it was 11:06 we adjourned.
But campaign too.
Oh, yeah, it really was. Good overtime. Too bad they don't send in the beaver or something like that.
Eric, do you want to sign those warrants too, right in front of you and pass those on?
Sure,
But we have to have a motion.
I will. I'll have a motion. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the recommended edits, the minutes of November 2nd, 2020.
I'll that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There we go. All right, so we have 5 minutes. I want to take.
I'm gonna work.
I'm gonna go to work. So is everybody find their seats? We will open this public hearing for the Jericho 2024 town plan. And this is for public comment. The select board will not be answering or discussing anything that was said during this period is for the public themselves. And given that there are a few people who wish to speak, we're going to limit it to 3 minutes per person. And John's gonna kind of keep track of time as best as possible, because although Joe offered, I think it's important that all of us kind of try to figure out what we're going to listen to, and we're going to listen to everybody's comments. And so, is Linda there?
Yes, I'm here. Just wanted to let you know I'm here and I'm ready to do the presentation whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, sorry you're not feeling well, but.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a stomach bug going around and it got me.
Oh, dear. That's fun, that's fun. All right, we will start with a presentation by our town planner, Linda Block.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Blash, the town planner. I should be able to share my screen, right? If I just click this arrow here, I'm gonna give it a go. Oh, no, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think you have to.
Hang
Try
on.
it again, try it again.
Oh, you got her there?
On all participants.
Oh,
We found the chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are you seeing my screen now?
Yep, we
Yes.
are, Linda. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
All right, I'm just gonna do about a 15 to 20-minute presentation about the process that the Planning Commission has gone through with the town plan. So this first slide just kind of shows all the different talking points that I'm gonna hit here in the process that we're going to go through in this hearing. So first, I'm going to review the process that we went through to develop the draft. I'm going to speak to some community participation highlights and things that the Planning Commission heard from the community. I'll be talking through some highlights of what's in the town plan, actual content of the draft, but hopefully a lot of people have read the plan. That's what we would hope for. I'll talk about the next steps. Then we'll move into the public comment portion of the hearing. Then the select board will close the hearing, and after the hearing is closed, the select board will discuss and direct the edits that they want made for the next version of the town plan, and hopefully notice the second hearing where we will finalize and adopt the town plan.
Hey, Linda, can you do
Yes.
a presentation view?
We're
Seeing your whole screen.
Gotcha. I feel like I always have this problem with PowerPoint.
F5 works.
F5.
Yep.
Nothing's happening when I hit F5.
Uh-oh. Yeah, sure.
Hold on a sec.
The slideshow.
There you go. Perfect.
Is that better?
Thank you.
All
That
right.
is
Well,
way better. Thank you.
okay. Well, now I can't see my notes, so I'll just be winging it.
Ah,
All right. So this slide shows an overview of the process, the whole process, which has been about a year in the making. So the Planning Commission started out back in December approximately of last year, reviewing the old town plan. And Planning Commission members met with David White, our consultant, to review each chapter in the old plan and identify what was missing, what was old information that should be taken out, and what was still important and needed to be kept. Then the Planning Commission launched a pretty robust public outreach and engagement effort in January of 2023, and it's been going on throughout the course of the year. And the Planning Commission had work sessions at each of their regular meetings between February through June on different topics that are in the town plan. In June is when David started working on the first draft of the town plan. And between June and October, it's been drafting, writing, editing, reviewing. Then on October 3rd, the Planning Commission had their public hearing on the town plan, and that brings us to where we are tonight with the select board hearings and plan adoption. So for community participation, as I said, there was a very robust effort on behalf of the Planning Commission. We had hundreds of touch points where we interacted with the community. We had online events, postings on Front Porch Forums. We had online surveys. We also had in-person events. There was a meeting or a table at the town meeting to publicize the town plan. We held a big community forum at Mount Mansfield High School in May. The Planning Commission was at the farmers market, engaging with people several times throughout the summer, and then the work sessions that I mentioned at the regular Planning Commission meetings. And they also had print materials like posters around town, newspaper ads, yard signs, and we even got a spot in each of the school newsletters. So the next few slides I'm going to go through show word clouds, and these are responses that we got to questions that we asked in our questions of the month. And so the word cloud is a visual representation of the responses that we got for each question. And the color of the words doesn't have any significance, but the size of the word reflects the number of people who use that word in their response. So the larger the word appears in the word cloud, the more frequently it was used in a response. So this question we asked was, what keeps you in Jericho? And the most common responses were neighbors, community, location, home, and natural areas.
Oh, is that okay with everyone?
A lot better.
Okay.
Well,
No,
yeah, I can see the screen better, but
I'll,
viewers can't see.
I'll put it back on if it's the problem.
No, it's
It's
fine.
hard to read.
No, it's okay for
It's all right.
them.
It's all right.
Viewers have seen the screen.
Should I keep going? Are you ready?
Yes, go ahead.
We're ready.
Okay. So these were the responses that we got to the question, what would make you leave Jericho? So the most common responses were overdevelopment, tax increases, not being able to age in place, lacking affordability, and not bike and pedestrian friendly. This question was, what do you see as the current challenge? I can't really see. Hang on a second. Whoops. The issues or challenges facing Jericho today and in the future. So the most common answers for that were the need for affordable housing, and also smaller, denser housing. Again, the need for bike and pedestrian infrastructure and protecting healthy ecosystems. And what do you see as the most important places or characteristics of Jericho that should be protected? The most common answers to that question were the rural character, the parks, and the school quality. So this question was, are there new or different housing, business, shopping, entertainment, transportation, or recreational opportunities that you would like to see in Jericho? And the most common answers to this, again, better bike and pedestrian connectivity, sensing a theme here with that. Zoning for smaller, denser housing, folks wanted restaurants, and some recreational activities, and even a swimming pool was mentioned quite a few times. So the Planning Commission, synthesized all this feedback and tried to tie together all these different comments and feedback that were coming in from the community. And some themes started to emerge, and those themes became the 5 main chapters that you see in volume 1 of the town plan. So this town plan is a pretty significant rewrite from previous versions, and the structure divides up the plan into 2 main volumes. Volume 1 is sort of like where we're going and why. And then volume 2 has mostly kind of background information and data to support volume 1. So the chapters that we identified with the themes are growing a vibrant community, and that chapter speaks to business and economic development in town, development at a scale that's appropriate for the Jericho community. The creating housing choices for all chapter speaks to the need for more housing in general, but specifically housing that meets the needs of middle and lower income families, and for seniors specifically, and also young families, and needing more diverse types of housing in Jericho and houses at different price points. The Stewarding a Resilient Community chapter speaks to how we plan to address climate change and protect our natural resources. The Building a Connected Community chapter talks about infrastructure needs, primarily wastewater infrastructure, as well as the bike and pedestrian connectivity that we've heard about that people are wanting. And the Supporting an Effective Community chapter talks about the town government and the need for the town to have the resources available to support the growth and evolution that it wants to go through. So this is a really wordy slide, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is from the plan. This is the vision for Jericho that the Planning Commission developed using the feedback from everyone. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I do want to read out some of the highlights because I think it will give us a good picture of the community that we live in and where we want to go. So Jericho is a community where all people are welcome. There's a wide range of housing choices. There are excellent schools where residents can age in place. All the residents, including the wildlife, can thrive. There's a resilient environment that provides healthy food and a revitalized rural economy. There's an interconnected network of trails, paths, sidewalks, and streets. There's convenient access to nearby employment centers, urban areas, and outdoor recreation. The village centers and the commercial districts are the hubs, and the government practices inclusive and transparent decision-making. So I'm going to talk through the five main chapters in volume 1. Each chapter has goals, objectives, and strategies, and I'm just going to highlight the goals and a few of the key strategies from each chapter. So the stewarding a resilient community goal is to protect the environment, to reduce our impact on our natural surroundings, and to retain the historic and rural character. And the key strategies for that chapter are to protect and conserve irreplaceable natural resources and unique cultural and landscape features, to incentivize development in the village areas and strategic clustered housing in other areas, and to prepare for climate change. And the key strategies are just a few examples I pulled out from each chapter. They're not the only strategies that are in each chapter. In the Creating Housing Choices for All chapter, the goal is to create a diverse range of housing choices to enable residents with a mix of backgrounds, incomes, and ages to live and thrive here. And so some of the key strategies to achieve that goal include investing in public infrastructure to facilitate creation of compact, diverse, and accessible housing in and around the village centers, updating our regulations and processes, and achieving the goals of the Jericho Housing Targets resolution that the Select Board adopted in June. In the Growing a Vibrant Community chapter, the goal there is to create the conditions necessary to attract and support most future development, to concentrate in and around the village growth areas, to strengthen the economic health of the community, support local entrepreneurship, and diversify and expand the town's tax base. So some of the key strategies from that chapter include investing in public infrastructure in and around the villages, and diversifying and expanding the local economic tax base. The Building a Connected Community chapter has a goal to give residents and visitors choices in how to travel safely through an interconnected network of trails, paths, sidewalks, and streets, and to provide the municipal infrastructure and services necessary to support our future housing, economic, energy, social, and environmental needs. Some of the key strategies from that chapter include prioritizing safety over speeds on our roads, pursuing alternatives to both single occupancy vehicles and mass transit, and to build out a multimodal network. And the Supporting an Effective Community chapter, the goal is to strengthen the ability of the town to anticipate, invest, respond, and adapt to changes in our community, economy, and climate. And some of the key strategies from that chapter are for the government to practice informed, transparent, and timely decision-making, to practice equity and all community engagement and representation, and to increase staff capacity and expertise. So this slide is a visual representation of the different iterations of the draft of the plan to show that it's been through quite an extensive review process. And I'm just going to kind of talk through this is intended to be sort of a flow chart. So the first draft of the plan came out around July 18th, and it was extensively reviewed by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also invited all the town committee chairs to get feedback from their committee members and bring that to a Planning Commission meeting to share with the Planning Commission. And we received a good amount of public feedback also from that version. So we took all that feedback and incorporated it into a round of edits to produce the second draft, version 2, which came out in the middle of August. And again, the Planning Commission did a pretty extensive review of that version. As well as we got a good deal of public feedback, and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission also reviewed that version and gave us feedback. That version was also the version of the plan that the Planning Commission used at their public hearing, which was held on September 19th. And there was another round of edits that incorporated all the feedback we received between August and September into the third version of the town plan, which is the draft that we're talking about tonight that was delivered to the select board on October 5th. And that brings us to here tonight, November 16th. And this is the first select board hearing on the town plan. So next steps in the process is after the public comment portion of the meeting tonight, the select board will discuss edits that they want made to the next iteration of the town plan, which will be producing on or before December 4th. And that would be the final version of the town plan that would potentially have the second select board hearing and adoption on December 19th. And this slide just describes a parallel process that our town plan is going through for regional approval with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. They did a review initially in December of 2022 on the old version of our town plan, and their staff provided feedback and edits for sections that needed updating, outdated sections and things like that. On September 13th, the Planning Advisory Committee of the Regional Planning Commission, which is a group of municipal planning staff from all the towns in Chittenden County. They reviewed the draft and gave us a bunch of feedback that was incorporated into the most recent version. And then yesterday, their Planning Advisory Committee met again to do a final review, and they did approve the Jericho Town Plan to be forwarded to the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Board for formal approval, which we would expect to get in January of 2024. And the select board has to adopt the plan before it can be approved by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Board. And I did get one comment literally today from the Planning Advisory Committee that I added on this slide for the select board to consider. And it was that they asked that we clarify in the statutory requirements sections of volume 2 regarding the future land use map, that land use map is a change from the previous plan, and that it's consistent with the description of the future land use section in volume 1. So what that really means is right now, volume 2 says that the future land use map is a potential change, but it actually is a change because it's different than the future land use map was in the previous version of the plan. Okay, and that brings us back to a similar slide to the one that I started off with. So I'm gonna turn it back over to John and the select board to enter into the public comment portion of the meeting. I do have a couple more slides, one of which the Planning Commission will use to speak to the edits that they are submitting to the select board. So I can share that when you guys are ready to move into their comment period.
Alrighty, as you said, we're gonna do 3 minutes per person to allow everybody to get to speak once, and then, so who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Go for it. You're in the front row.
Okay, then. Come on.
Come up.
Actually, Brian, it'd be helpful to have you here sitting in front of the microphone. Thank you.
That's what I thought.
It's easier to hear because of that we're in there.
Well, good evening. I'm Brian Walsh, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jericho's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the JDEI. The JDEI appreciates that Jericho's Declaration of Inclusion, adopted by the Select Board last April, was placed prominently on both the town's website and at the beginning of the new town plan. Furthermore, we are grateful for the commitment to conducting an equity audit for the town. The JDEI hopes to be a partner in this endeavor, which will build around the work already done with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and Abundant Sun, and is aligned with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission's equity efforts. So on behalf of our committee, thank you. Okay.
wants to be next? Any other comments?
Chuck Lacy. I think that, I think the planning commission has really done a pretty extraordinary job here. I followed it closely, not everything I wanted is in the plan, but certainly I had the opportunity to, to express my opinions. I can't recall the planning commission, any planning commission in Jericho doing a better job at outreach and, really taking the temperature, around the town. I think the draft, they really stuck with it. I think the third draft was much better than the first draft. I think it was really strengthened when the individual planning commission members really took a hand in the draft. The main thing that's missing in this plan is the select board and any sense of your commitment to getting the major priorities done by a certain date. This plan needs to say when the first wastewater system is going to open, and then you work your way backwards. Everything in the plan over and over again talks about wastewater treatment being an essential thing. It's been in the town plan before. It's been in the current town plan. You waited until the 8th year of a 10-year plan for any particular motion having to do with wastewater. And in this plan, astoundingly, it's the planning commission that's still responsible for wastewater. You need to say when the first one's going to be open and you work your way backwards. I look at the Burlington School Board. In the time that the current unfinished study has been going on, they evaluated 12 sites for their school. They selected the site, they bonded it. They're in demolition right now. I mean, they've made incredible progress. And the reason is they said, we're going to open in the fall of 2025, and they work backwards. They organized themselves, the board got the various information, or the various staffing and the expertise they needed to get it done. That's what an organization that's serious about getting something done does. We do not have the executive or governance capacity to get wastewater or any of the other major projects done here. We have just an ongoing record of studying something and not getting it done. I mean, a classic example is we've been restricting where people can live based on certain ideas about public transit. We went and got a study done, which took years, completed in 2019, and did nothing with it. The study was very clear. What we're doing is not working and will never work. And the town didn't act. And, it shows up. No, well, lo and behold, it shows up again in the plan as like another study, another thing to consider, still with the planning commission. So I think that you need to put dates, identify what your priorities are, put dates down on when you're going to get done, and then you need to organize the town government to get them done. I believe you need a town manager. I believe you need some true CFO experience. I read the select board minutes from 1954 up until the mid 80s. And they were talking we had the same government we had in the late 1960s, 3 select board members and an administrator. They knew it wasn't enough then. And we've tripled the population, an enormous increase in complexity in government. The idea that the planning commission is going to go try to negotiate with Cambridge and Underhill to put together a transportation system it's ridiculous. We need executive strength directed by the select board working at a policy level. I don't see the capacity to build a wastewater system here. And I think that's the main thing. I would encourage you to go through this, look at the deliverables, decide what your priorities are, put a date on there, and then you need to build the town government necessary to achieve the objectives. Otherwise, we're going to be right back where we are 10 years from now with the same set of priorities, just as we've done in the past.
Other comments?
Hi, Lauren Montgomery Reinhardt. I live up the road So, I come to these meetings, my husband can't join me.
Put the microphone closer to you or
It
something.
won't help.
This is just for recording's sake.
Oh, okay.
I'm here, I've come and try and represent myself and my husband, and we live up the road here on Route 15. Thank you for all the work you've done on the plan. There are two things. One is a concern. One thing I have to mention, when you did your word bubble in the beginning of the presentation, there's no context. I don't know how many people this was, and I know it's supposed to be visual and give you an idea of who's saying what, but I don't know if that's like, I don't know how many comments are on the page, but it's hard to evaluate if you don't know the numbers behind that. That's one. Two, it's with the safety and walkability and so on of Jericho. We'd love to have a more walkable town. It's just the plans that we've gotten from that team of engineers, it seems outblown. And I think we have to realize we hired them to do an assessment and to advise, but it's us who has to guard the character of the town, and doing a big blown out thing where you have, the road lanes and a bike lane and a sidewalk and a grassy patch and all the stuff. And again, I say this because it would really bump up against our front porch. It's problematic. I hope and I look forward to seeing how we can push back on that and just have something a little more in the character of the town. So it's not this blown out thing. It's just a nice way to get around, and it's more feasible. In terms of the safety, I also we like to highlight, my husband and I, sidewalks. It would be really great to slow down the traffic in front of our house, which is just up the road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Bill, introduce yourself and.
Hi, I'm Bill Butler and I represent Wisdom House. We're interested in building a mixed age village in the Riverside District. And I just want to reiterate our interest in having the Riverside zoning redone, and we would like to be included in that. And we would also request that Greg Tatro be included in it, since he's the owner of the property. We really like what's happening here, but we just want to say, what our interests are. Thank you.
Other people may comment? Sure, Bill.
Well, I'm here as a supporter of affordable housing, and we've lived in
His name's Bill Douglas.
William Douglas with two S's.
Sorry, Bill.
We've lived in Jericho for about 50 years. I know there's a lot of people that have lived here a lot longer, but in the 50 years we've been here, I haven't seen very many developments going up that I would call affordable housing. I mean, we've seen a lot more expensive homes being built in the woods and whatever, and I don't even begin to be I can't be an expert on the zoning rules and regulations that may have encouraged that. But, I feel so badly. We live in a very modest home and on, I don't know, something less than an acre. And I used to be a little jealous of people with much bigger properties. But, I'm rather proud now to live on a small lot. I am not one to, gloat or to build castles that my neighbors need to look at or whatever. But, I'm rather upset. I almost think that, we hear about Indians receiving reparations because of what the white man did to them. Well, I almost think in Jericho, maybe there's people that if we could identify them, and I'm sure we could not, but there's people that we almost ought to give reparations to. We've kept them out of our town. We haven't been, a lot of people have done very well, and we haven't really shared it. We've put fences around the town in terms of rules and regulations. And I mean, I suppose some of it is builders that can make a lot more money building a very expensive home than a small, modest home, but it's just, it's not life like I'd like to see it in the United States, So I guess I would like to encourage the select board and other movers and shakers in the community to be serious about affordable housing and share some of our wealth or whatever. So let's do something, instead of talking, let's do something. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm Marge Douglas. And I'm just gonna add on to what Bill said, one part of it. I'm part of the group that's working on Harvest Crossing and Underhill, even though I live in Jericho. And
What is
it's
that project?
Harvest Crossing.
What is that?
Oh, it's affordable housing, using Habitat for Humanity, basically, are the ones that will be building the housing. And I have learned a lot in the 3 years that I've been on the committee, and I would like to share a little bit of that, I guess, more than anything else. I think that what frequently is missing is the will to find the property that will work. And then you need a group of people to really put in a lot of time and effort in order to just bring it to fruition. And it took us 3 years just to buy the land and to do all the evaluations that needed to be done for that, et cetera. And we've worked with Habitat, right along with Habitat, all along from day one, which has been, they've been a big help. But you can't just build affordable housing. I like the Habitat idea of perpetually affordable housing. So I would like to put in a plug for that. Their houses are affordable forever into the future because of the way they operate, basically. And I'm sure that there are other people that do that also. And I don't know about independent contractors, what happens when those affordable houses get sold on round 2. And I don't know what the answer is. I have a feeling, but I don't know what that is. So I would just like to encourage you to really, when you're looking at affordable housing, think about that, and make it, if you can make it affordable into forever, into perpetuity, that makes way more sense than having a house that is built as affordable and then somebody is able to make more money off of it on round 2 when they sell it. So that's all I would like to say. I don't know if you have any questions, but that would be, it's been just an eye opener for me.
Thank you,
Really.
Marge. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Other commenters?
Anybody,
I've been watching, I don't see any games.
is Martha still on?
SJ.
Oh, SJ has her hand up.
SJ, okay.
I was waiting for you to switch to the online group. Sorry. May I share my screen?
Oh, well, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
It'll keep me on message.
Okay.
So I want to first of all thank Bill and Marge Douglas. We need to talk for their thoughtful words. It's a nice opening for me. I'm SJ Doobie. I'm chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. I'm really impressed with the work that the Planning Commission has done in putting this town plan together. As a committee, we felt included and heard all along the way. Tonight, I want to underscore some of what's already in the town plan, and then put some context around the edits that I'll be submitting for your consideration this evening. So the creating housing choices for all section of the town plan is really about creating a variety of housing of all types and sizes that's affordable to lower and middle income households. The piece that I want to focus on tonight to put some context around is that variety, that diversity, that affordability needs to be considered in all regions of our town, not just in our village and village centers. But to achieve those goals, to achieve kind of that vision, there are some goals that are in the town plan that we as the Affordable Housing Committee really support, such as facilitating residential infill, expanding our village and village center districts, identifying additional areas for denser housing, incorporating modest homes, smaller lots, and multifamily housing in all residential zones, encouraging strategic compact development that's consistent with preserving natural area and climate goals, simplifying or sunsetting the form-based code in the Riverside area, and endorsing an increase in municipal capacity. And so really in focusing on the all residential areas aspect, I just want to take a minute to say that expanding for potential areas for growth beyond our village centers is going to be necessary to address Jericho's housing needs and to meet the goals in our target housing resolution. We're not going to be able to do it with infill alone for a variety of reasons. Infill is great and we support it and we want to facilitate it and we want to encourage it. It is also not the only tool in our toolbox and shouldn't be. The land is privately owned and very few landowners on their own are going to decide that they want to subdivide or add an ADU. We know that turnover is really low in Jericho. People who own homes here stay here and hold on to that home for dear life, which means opportunities for adding new units and creating infill are very rare. We know that NIMBYism kills housing and densifying areas. We know that water and wastewater access is a huge issue in our village centers, even if we bring online a new wastewater facility, which we need and I'm glad to see is in this town plan. And infill is small scale development, which again is great, but also means that it's costly on a per unit basis, which obviously works against affordability. And so the extra piece of that then is that while the focus of infill should certainly be in village centers, diverse housing should be explicitly allowed everywhere. And there are ways to do that that are consistent with the priorities of our land use areas that are really for conservation and rural ag. We have the science that can support us in identifying strategic areas that are appropriate for new housing. I think that we should be relying on impact assessments to really determine the impact of housing development on the land use priorities of that area. There are instances where small, compact, even multi-unit housing has less of an impact on the environment than scattered, sprawling, large homes on large lots, for instance. And then finally, and I'd like to nod to my fellow Jericho DEI committee members, not allowing the kinds of housing that is accessible to median and below median income households is inconsistent with our Declaration of Inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have others online or in here? Any other comments? People want to go off this property? Oh, rush at once. Otherwise, I was going to say it's time for you guys. Yes.
Can anyone hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark.
Okay. So I just wanted to go back here just a bit. I've been thinking about this, and Chuck actually made a good point. And what I find is that we have all of these things from way back that we have started, and we continue dumping more money and dumping more money, and nothing ever comes to fruition. We spend more on studies than what that we could have completed the project on the same amount of money as we're spending on all of these studies, and they're not going anywhere, like Chuck said. And when you start looking at doing these high systems for septic and that type of thing, you're kind of, as it's been called, that sometimes I put the cart before the horse. But in some cases, when you start going and doing some of these developing things, which basically I get shut down about every place I want to go. And so what I find is that if you need to do the septic system in order to get this affordable housing in, or to get some senior housing in, we really need to go ahead and say, where's the septic going to go? The also thing is, we're talking about rivers. Well, where does septic, where do those septic dump into? And I just find, and it's like, I can say this by all of the projects that I've started in my house. I guess that's the only way that I can do this. I have several of them, and I got to a point where they came to a standstill. They stopped. You throw them off the burner. Sooner or later, the town has got so many of them going on at such a big expense that why can't we just put the town on hold a second and go back and find out all of these things that are unfinished, incomplete, not, that we spent all of this money on, and find out either, A, these things we have to go revisit. Either they're going to work or they're not going to work because we've been working on them for years. If they're not going to work, we should know by now. Just throw them out the window. Call it done. Don't keep on throwing good money after bad. I mean, we have to just go back, complete something before we keep on going and going and going and going. You're not going to do anything. It's like doing this study as well. Who should have the jobs? Well, nobody wants to work for the town of Jericho. You have all these jobs opening. You don't have anybody applying. You don't have all of this stuff. What are you going to do? Paula Carrier, the office would fall apart if Paula wasn't there. I mean, sorry, Paula. It would fall apart if she wasn't there. She is the glue. And she shouldn't have to be all the glue. And she takes the grief. She takes the stuff from every different department there is, and she ends up being the scapegoat. Bottom line is that, we need to go backwards. Go back to some basics. Take these things off the line. Find out what people really want, how important it is, and actually who is actually going to use these things. What capacity, all of this bike path stuff up through to Clark's and whatever, who's actually going to use that? Are we going to see 5 people on that bike path? Are we going to find 50 people on that bike path? Is it going to be for recreation, or is it going to be for transportation? We start looking at funds. Is it recreation? Is it transportation? Do you take land by eminent domain because it turns to transportation instead of being recreation, which goes ahead and puts these homeowners having a bike path and people going by? It's a liability. People go on bike paths. They throw bottles, they throw cans, they throw glass, they do whatever. And I guess in the end is that the town needs to slow down. You need to go backwards. You need to finish the things that you've started and just not keep on compiling a list of them to spend money after money after money. You just need to go backwards, and you can't move forward. You can't plan all of these housing projects and all of this senior housing, which I tried to do and was gunned down. Anything I try to do gets gunned down. So the thing is that you got to go backwards. If you're going to build these things, and that's your plan to build all of these houses within a year, you have to figure out, where is the septic going to go first? You can't build houses without the septic or with the public water. You can't do those things. Town garage, a big budget item. We need it. You can't find people to even work on the town roads. I mean, and those are essential. Nobody goes anywhere without the road crew. So I'm just saying this town really needs to take a step back. And I've been here a lot of years, and my family's been here for over 100. And I think it's time that we go back to the time when Don Fay and Bud Hunt and all of those guys were on the select board and road foremans and doing things. You have to be practical. You can't overspend. There's no affordability in the town of Jericho when we keep on saying, yeah, let's spend $10,000 to find out that so-and-so doesn't have their tail in a chair at an office when they should be. It's,
Mark, sorry, I got to interrupt. I'm unfortunately the time person.
okay,
Got a final sentence or two?
nope, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Martha.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Anybody else want to come up to the table before the planning commission has their edits talked, or any other comments? Do we have anybody else online? Before
I
we-
don't see any hands raised.
I see no hands raised.
Okay, so then it's the planning commission edits that you're gonna talk about, right?
So Linda, can you just give me my slide?
Yep, I think I can. Hang on. Are you seeing it?
No.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
You can.
Okay, cool.
Nope. Now it's switched to the agenda for the public hearing. There you go. Thank you. So I'm Susan Brzee. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. I appreciate the really hundreds of hours that so many people have put into the plan. It's hard. It's really hard to synthesize and balance all the different needs. And we're confident that that's what the plan does. Someone asked about numbers and public input. I just wanted to emphasize the amount of public input that we received. We had a real commitment to public outreach, as you saw, and we had regular updates on the Town of Jericho website. So I think you'll be really surprised to hear that we had almost 3,000 visits to the website, to the project page over the course of the year. And when you measure public engagement, you look at what the visitors do, and they go from just checking something out to downloading something or reading something to answering a survey. And we had almost 2,000 people that were visitors that were categorized as aware, meaning they visited the project page. We had about 1,000 people who were informed, meaning that they downloaded a document or visited. We had about 538 visitors that visited multiple pages on the project. So the project itself had all the presentations that we did. It had timelines, it had research, it had surveys. And we had about 350 visitors who completed a survey. So when you saw the word cloud, each of those was the result of a question of the month. And we did 4 question of the month, and each question of the month had about 100 responses. And so overall, it was about 350 responses. Some were a little higher, some were a little bit lower. 525 people downloaded a document, and that was 109 people downloaded the first draft of the town plan, and 107 people downloaded the executive summary, which was just posted like a week ago. So the amount, I think the reason why the Planning Commission is confident that we have balanced those different points of view, because you have people that are concerned about natural resources, people that are concerned about affordability, people that are concerned about getting to work and not having to deal with traffic, people that are concerned about their kids, the state is concerned about conserving land. And so you can't make, all the people happy all the time. The second thing is just to reiterate what Linda said, that the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission has approved the plan. So we felt that that was good validation that we'd done our homework and were in compliance. And then finally, we really appreciated the wisdom and expertise of a local planning expert, David White. not only was a fantastic consultant, he lives in Jericho and he's lived in Jericho for like 30 years. And so his head was in the right place and his heart was in the right place. So the plan is driven by data, and it enables the development of housing and small businesses. And it really balances the need to grow with the desires to remain rural. So with that, the Planning Commission forwarded the plan to you. So we're not in a position anymore to make edits to the plan, but we've continued to review and discuss the plan. And as part of the public record, I'm required to state that we are requesting that the select board direct the consultant to include the edits that we've suggested that we sent in your packet. Those edits I classified as dotting the i's and crossing the t's, and the majority of them are typos, formatting. I'm sure you noticed when you went through that bullets were, all had the number 1 in them, or we might have not included a citation to CCRPC's Building Homes Together campaign. That's the level of edits that we had. There were about 80 edits. Very OCD Planning Commission. And the one item that was potentially a material change is the Planning Commission thought it would be important to include reference to this recent study of the town garage. And David advised us to include that in a discussion about capital planning on page 48 of the plan. So what we'd like to do is have him draft a few sentences that just reiterates the recommendation that we've made to go from a capital budget to a capital program, which is a more long-term view and is a little bit more comprehensive. That's one of the main thrusts of the recommendations, and using the town garage need for update as one example of that. So that's my formal request, is that you consider the edits from the Planning Commission and direct the consultant to make those changes, in addition to the one that Linda mentioned earlier, the about the land use chapter reference in volume 2 that she went over. So that's my request. And then we will stay through your conversation, and we're happy to answer questions or provide other clarifications.
Thank you. Well, this is final call for anybody who hasn't yet spoken or wishes to say something, so we're approaching the time allocated, but if people had comments, and we would make sure that everybody had the first time to speak. But if not,
I think we're good.
We could move on to close the public hearing at 7:30, 7:26. That's where people want to be. Unless somebody who hasn't spoken gets a chance. Go ahead, we'll close the public hearing. And then move on to the select board input on consideration, our own input and consideration of the public input of the town plan. I'll just start with a couple of little edits, like you had talked on your sheet, because you have you mentioned, let's see, under, oh gosh, I can't see.
It would be helpful if Wendy is also here from the Planning Commission, so that we can listen, and David's here also. And he's the one who's going to be making the changes to the document. So it would be helpful if we came forward so we could talk a little bit better or hear you a little bit better.
Sure, I'll actually speak louder. I was trying to read this tiny little print in the talk, but feel free to come on. Because you do want to hear, I'm sure the select board has some next thing I'm going to say. These are just, I wasn't even paying attention to Dave was here.
Yes.
Hiding.
Hi.
Sometimes that's good.
I just wanted on your edit sheet that you talk about HOAs, not discriminating against ADU. I want to make sure that there's some energy thing in there, because I have to keep saying, I recommend the energy committee recommends that they not exclude solar, but there's been no zoning to say that I can do that, they can do that.
So David, are you documenting? Okay.
And then,
Fellas, hey, Michael,
Is the
and
mic?
then on, I think it's page 137, you mentioned the road foreman, and it's really, you had a crew of 4, it's a crew of 5. There's 6 people in the road crew. And then under fire protection, page 133. See, I just did this, I did a quick scan of everything. I haven't proofread everything, just to let you know, I haven't proofread it all, but on volume 2, page 133, under fire protection, the E911 calls are no longer handled by the state police in Williston. The fire department, I think 2 years ago, is now going to shelter dispatch. And eventually, we're still talking about regional dispatch. But those are just those particular edits that I can put on and sort of let other people do it. Do you have any comments?
Comments, yeah, I guess I do. So a lot of people have said it, but I'll say it again. I do think this is the amount of effort and specifically the outreach that the planning commission went about to go about getting as much feedback from people who wouldn't have had the opportunity otherwise. I think it's pretty amazing. I think we're going to end up with a fantastic plan because of it. I had a chance to read most of the drafts. I think I might have skipped draft 2. I forget which one, but I've read most of the drafts. And I agree with that. Chuck that said draft 3 is so much better than draft 1, and obviously that's the whole point. But it's just nice to see that happen. I do think the whole thing is way more readable. The previous plan that's currently active until early January. That one I did not read. I probably won't. But I think probably most people haven't. So I do think it's readable. My only complaint, and it's not about any of the people that worked on it, and maybe it's just something that I should have done more, is the amount of time that we had to get the edits from draft 1 until draft 3 was ample. There was so much time, so much discussion, all that. But when we got draft 3 to the point where we had to accept draft 3, and then that was we had no opportunity from there until this meeting to edit it, was so unclear to me. And it could be 100% just me not being clear on it. But I think I had 36 hours of when draft 3 became technically available, physically, in my possession, which I got on the website. I'm pretty sure it was about 36 hours before I could read the whole thing, before I was then in the select board meeting where we had to adopt the plan. And then
Accept the plan.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. There was accept, what do you mean accept? Yes, you can hand it to me, or yes, we're gonna do it. And even that word accept was I found very confusing. John worked hard to try to get my understanding up there. But even after that conversation, it was still not correct. Again, I'm taking ownership of that, but having to, on that select board meeting, 36 hours after getting the plan, to say then, the formality of then we have to approve this meeting, and then nothing can change in that plan between that plan and this meeting. Was just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming to say you have 36 hours to read that plan and either reject it and just basically, which would be horrible to do for the amount of really, really good work that went into it. I understand it's probably statute driven and it's law driven, but my gosh, that is ridiculously complex for that much. For that much time but then the select board was in, just based on the date that the old plan expires, right? I think it's January 6th or something like that. And then, okay, well, that means it's, oh, gosh, we've only had these 4 select boards. Well, okay, you know, and so I get it, but that was just really frustrating. That said, most of the concerns that I've heard addressed to me, I have had a chance to work through with Susan and talk through with Susan and understand as best that I can. And I guarantee there's still stuff about this format, this process that I don't understand. Luckily, we only do it every 8 years. Maybe that's why nobody's particularly good at it. Yeah, the process, I don't know if it's something we need to like work on with like the Secretary of State or whatever. Whoever came up with the idea of how complicated it has to be to update your town plan in a world that's changing as fast as it is crazy.
But the interesting thing, it used to be every 5 years. But it was moved.
It takes 5 years to understand the process.
Well, it was moved to 8 years by the state because smaller communities very often could not even get any zoning done before they had to start the next plan because they were so resource limited.
So again, it's not a complaint about anyone that worked on it or the effort that went into it, because I think it's really good. And I think, you know, Susan said it best, it's not gonna make everybody happy, but, but it listened to an awful lot of people to come up with it. And I think that's really good. I do think that we'll have to, you know, I wanna, hopefully SJ is gonna send us some of the edits that she talked about, because I was typing, but once I saw she had a nice thing, I'm assuming we'll get that email. So I want to consider some of that. I do think affordable housing is a serious problem, not just like, oh, it's not just, and for so many reasons, right? It's unfair. It's what we need to consider. It's our livelihood of the town and all those things. And I just think this is the plan to really start moving the needle on it. So I do take, you know, SJ's concerns seriously, but I haven't had a chance to download them yet.
Well, in fact, that's our job tonight, is not only have your own input, but to go through the comments that were presented and which ones we want to see put into the, as an edit. That has to go to David to be fixed.
And that has to, but
that's
so the edits all have to go tonight?
Well, if we feel that we need more time to talk about the edits, then we need to have another select board meeting to do it, because you like to have, it was December that you wanted to have it by 5, maybe, if you needed it by December 1st or something like that, for sure.
So it's, hopefully the mic can pick me up. David White, I'm from Sterling Mountain Community Planning and Design, the consultant on the project. The timeline is really driven by the statutory process with, as you said, looking at January 4th as being when the current plan expires. So working our way backwards. So right now, looking at, I think, December 19th or that week.
For the next public hearing.
For your next public hearing, yeah. That needs to be the select board's final public hearing, which means there are no more changes made to the plan to that draft that goes to that public hearing. Between now and when the 15-day public notice requirement takes effect, you can consider changes and make changes, but you would, as you suggested, I think, need to have another select board meeting in order to make a decision to say, okay, you want these changes to go in and you want to warn that next public.
Essentially, it's December 1st. In order
Yeah, and next week's Thanksgiving. And if I could also just add one other thing, you've closed the public hearing, so technically you're not receiving any more public comments. So
it's just ours.
It's just yours.
Right.
So if you want to receive comments from SJ, you might want to specifically make that as part of
well, we received them. She shared them publicly, so they're there.
Right.
I didn't take screenshots of them.
Yeah.
But so
if she has a document that she wants to share, if she can share that with you tonight, you can make it clear that you're incorporating that as part of the public record. Then they're kind of in the bucket for consideration,
right?
As part of this process.
Can you send them, please, SJ?
So that's.
Yes, and I apologize for the misunderstanding. Everywhere it said that you could supply edits up to 11:16, and in my world, that means midnight, November 16. So I wanted to provide the context and then give you the edits so that you could consider them with the context. So I apologize for that misunderstanding.
So anyway, if you feel like you want more time to just digest what was said tonight.
Like, how technical are the edits? Like, do we say, oh, add a line here? Like, are we
We are-
putting the plan, going in and like deleting the?
Well, it's a, like say, most of the ones tonight were just, like March Douglas. Let's, make sure that there's so much, we already have potentially, how much, perpetually afforded. But it wasn't anything specific other than what, was already in the plan and our, the thing that we said we do 10%.
I would agree with that no, information from the public was, something that I didn't see in the town plan.
Yeah.
It was more encompassing
Right.
comments than,
Right.
Detailed technical stuff that we would add. Or
Right.
we would look at it.
Yeah, I mean, and because everybody did, and it's well worth the accolades that the planning commission got. I mean, because people did at least recognize the amount of work that the planning commission and public input put in this. But so there really wasn't anything other than Chuck's, which is very specific.
Chuck, yeah, I agree, that was it.
SJ had some things where, and then that's the planning commission's edits, which are, general, technical.
Yeah.
Which usually doesn't mean a whole lot
Yeah, that's
in
great.
terms of having a major change.
Catherine, this is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the two that I mentioned are important distinctions to change, but real good and they, my only comment is, is that I'd rather, at the moment, I would see the priority, that, because you talked about, the town manager and staff capacity and transparency and stuff. I'd rather see a focus initially on staff capacity and expanding it so that we do have more backup for people in town that have skill sets that we're going to need going forward.
Actually, so, can I?
Yeah.
Actually, something is. My two questions are kind of down that road. So, again, I wanna comment, Wendy, I've known you for a long time too, and David, the year you pulled Tucker from soccer program, I didn't hold that against you. He went to football. He had promise. But I do wanna say that I do think the planning commission did a wonderful job. To get that many responses from the topic of a town plan is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, no one sits up at night and say, oh, I should have read the town plan last night. It just doesn't happen. So usually the people who hit it and look at it are the ones who are concerned. And those are actually the ones you want to actually target. They care, so again, I think it's a wonderful job. The outreach was really good to get that much input. Two things that I wanted to ask. One is actually relevant to the governance section. I'm not gonna tell you, I've read a lot of town plans. In my job, we do read town plans because typically staff will comment that, hey, here's your development. You should read this section. So I've read spots of town plans all over Chittenden County. Has the topic of looking at the governance and capacity ever been in another town plan that Dave, that of, planning commission looks at? And also, my other comment is, I see a lot of the word local business. Was that a guiding thing? I get sometimes a little nervous because there's certain aspects of development that local everyday people will struggle to be able to accomplish. They don't have funds, the capabilities. So the word local, the honing in on it, was there a premise behind that? And if there was, you know, can we facilitate that? How can we say that we prefer somebody local to own a pharmacy as opposed to CVS?
Do you want me to answer or you want to answer?
Sure, you can start and I can jump in if there's.
We definitely heard a lot of preference from the public for small business and local business, number one. Number two, the planning research shows that the closer the ownership is to the community, the greater the economic benefit is to the community and the more persistent that benefit is over the long term. So that's a preference.
Okay.
And then thirdly, it's really a matter of when should the town intervene? So what the plan is trying to say is if the town's going to do something, we would probably be inclined to do something to help a local business because CVS doesn't really need our help. So that's basically what's behind that. It's not really to say that it's an uneven playing field. It's more like if you were going to deploy town resources, like we had somebody come speak from St. Albans, the city manager in St. Albans, who you probably know, Dominic St. Cloud. And he talked about facilitating like a local business to open a bike shop and a local developer to do a small hotel. So we were really inspired by that meeting. We can't wait to have him back. So I would say those are the three principles behind that text appearing often.
And supporting that throughout the plan, you'll see the language that says support the town's responsibility is to create the conditions for such development to happen. And I think that kind of goes along with that. It's not, we're not saying how, but we're saying we're looking at a kind of a broader picture of how we can what are the options to facilitate that kind of growth. So it's not prescriptive.
Okay.
So the town does that by making sure that the zoning that's in place allows for those types of uses, those types of buildings, those types of footprints, and that we're providing the infrastructure necessary to support that. That's how we kind of set and provide the conditions necessary for these things to happen.
So you facilitate like a simple change of use on a residence into a small business.
Yeah.
And so the town's facilitation of that begins with, does the zoning allow that to happen?
Okay.
Does the zoning make it easy to do something that should be easy? If not, we need to change the zoning to make sure that it does.
Okay.
Right. And if I could answer your question about the governance, one of the important aspects of a municipal plan is the implementation. How are you going to actually do all the stuff you want to do? So that's certainly the last chapter, the getting it done, which is the short, medium, and long-term timeframes. But it was such a critical part of the conversation for the Planning Commission to talk about just the capacity of the town government, both its elected leaders and its staff resources, to get all this really important and really complicated work done. It was important to kind of call that out, is that these are things that as we grow as a community really need to be thinking about, or be in many cases rethinking about. You know, we are maturing as a community, so it's important to get those things on the table.
So in order to implement the town plan, it was an integral part of achieving that. That's how you came back to conclusion.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would say if I don't know if it's in other municipal plans, but I would say our planning commission would say, I don't care, it needs to be in ours.
I heard so many towns. Not one town says, well, they did it that way. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's why
Thank
I think that, you know, our staff capacity is really the important thing to make things happen, you know, going forward. That's the initial where we should put our money.
Yeah, and that concept, really, the 2 points in there, which I know got, the language got softened between 1 and 3, draft 1 and draft 3. The 5-person select board. I know there are people who will feel very strongly about it. And I've talked to most of them. I have yet to be convinced that it helps with capacity. And so I haven't given you this edit, but I've been thinking about I don't know that it belongs in our town plan, despite how strongly a lot of people feel about it. And I don't think it's worth derailing the whole plan to remove it. But I keep coming back to, and I've heard all the good arguments for it. There are good arguments on both sides. Well, there's one argument against it. My main argument against it is the town things that happen, the official town things that happen, as you can see, can only happen at a select board meeting. That's the only place anything can actually get done is at a select board meeting. And our select board meetings are frequent and they go forever. And 2 more people sitting on the select board. I don't see how it's possible that those meetings get shorter.
They get shorter with a town manager.
Not necessarily.
And so I've heard that.
Look at their town, I'm sorry.
And so I've heard that argument as well. It just seems so similar, like they're like mincing words between like, okay, like you look at the 2 and you're like, okay, there are a few things where I could see it, you know, sometimes.
Board meetings with a $50 million budget and 500 employees and a 15-member school board last 2 hours. Because you have an executive who can act between meetings and can come in with fully baked proposals. And the school board is in a policy position, and then you have a superintendent, equivalent of a town manager, who can go out and get stuff done. And you're not worried about dog bites. And your meetings aren't derailed by someone coming in to talk about whatever they want, because they first go to a town manager who can act without having to come to you and ask for permission on every little thing.
Our town administrator's job description is very similar to the town manager. I was not on the board when the decision was made between the 2, but our town administrator can do the same thing. He runs the day-to-day operations. Because we are the fiduciary agents for the taxpayers. Early on, the select board said that anything above $10,000 should come to be discussed at a select board meeting, so people know where their budget, their town budget is going.
And put the town manager in charge of the waste treatment system. Put the town manager in charge of the public transportation.
You're not going to find a town manager who has the skill set to necessarily do that. And maybe the town is not going to take over the wastewater system, but maybe it's run by the community.
So,
But
I'll resonate that a little bit too. I understand the needs and so on, but the pulling of municipality resources into something like that typically runs with a much bigger municipality. I would more lean towards an engineer on staff than increasing the select board and trying to get a select board on it, or going with a town manager and trying to find a town manager with expertise. Again, something like that, I believe, is a staff thing. As far as select board, you know, again, I'm here.
That's right.
Okay, I just showed up. I'm here. But the one thing I think, the only positive I see on the select board with 5 is if Catherine and I want to discuss something.
That is absolutely the advantage. And then
That's an advantage.
That
It's not a quorum.
is.
But other than that, I've been on committees with 20 people and we didn't get anything done. More doesn't make it always better. All right, but facilitating the proper people, I think this lot's gonna come out from that study for staffing. I really do. But I don't want to be on a select board. I don't want to serve my community and have to oversee the construction of a wastewater treatment plant or a small in-ground system. Those are what the consultants are for. We hire the consultants to manage that. That's a staff.
It's the conversation is actually convincing me that it's a good thing that it was at least in the draft, because it's prompting the conversation, and we softened the language, but really we tempered it because we knew that there was more conversation to be had. So instead of having the draft say this should happen, which is what draft 1 said, it now says that it should be considered. And the expansion of the select board is moved also out to a longer term time frame, but it currently sits with the Planning Commission. And the reason is because we have now a track record of effective public outreach. And in the past, it's been voted on, and some people voted no because of this, and some people voted yes because of that. And a lot of those reasons were not really the best long-term reasoning. And so we just think it deserves a conversation. So ultimately, it's up to you to decide if you want to keep it in the plan as a consider, or if you want to take it out. And everything else is basically can happen with it in the plan or without it in the plan, but it kind of makes me think that it's a good thing that was in the plan, because the conversation has to happen. The town manager consideration, we slated as a responsibility of the town administrator, because we knew that this study was in the wings. We knew VLCT would be involved. That's the right place. And just to clarify that chart that shows getting things done, the responsible party or the primary lead is not necessarily the ultimate accountable party. It is only the party that currently has the ball. It is the party that is going to move this project, like you heard Martha talking, nothing ever happens, is just to say this party will take this conversation to the next step. So select board, like, what are the timelines? What are the considerations? What do other towns do? What do people think? All of that to develop a project plan for that. Currently, our suggestion is that you assign that to us, and we will work on that for you in 2024, and that you assign John to work on the idea of a town manager. What you're suggesting, Catherine, what I take away from that is, do we need some text that is a little bit more expansive about staff capacity? That the town manager consideration is within a broader picture. I think it already says that, but if you think it needs to be stronger, or if you think the staff capacity should be in year 0 to 1, and then the town administrator should be in a later timeline, that would be another way to address that change.
That's my preferences, because I think the staff capacity needs to be looked at right now.
Do we have it in there now?
It is a short term within 1 year action item, whereas the other two are in the medium term.
Can you just read to us what the short-term one says about staff capacity?
It says initiate a study of the capacity limitations and expansion opportunities. Sorry, wrong one.
Well, good, we already started that.
Yeah, you did. We were just commenting on that.
Yeah,
We could check that one off. The
Check
list.
that one off the list.
Initiate a municipal audit to comprehensively evaluate town staffing roles and functions, and making recommendations for future staffing needs and capabilities.
And that's assigned to the town administrator?
It is assigned to the town administrator as a short-term action.
So that's the staffing piece that you're looking for, I think is
Yes.
already in there.
Because we want to.
As a higher priority than the other two
Yes.
governance or
Because
capacity.
because you also talk about moving things forward, and we need a lot, to move forward, you're gonna need the capacity among staff to move forward more than
Totally.
us.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think the priority
I
is
think you're
there.
The other thing is, unfortunately, it's one of your suggestions, because otherwise we would just give you a blanket, add the edits, because, most of them are basic. But you have add info on consultant's report on town garage, suggest consider alternative locations as part of long-term strength planning approach. We wish we had that kind of time, but we don't. And there are a lot of reasons why the garage is where it's at. We're going to go through the history. We had anticipated that the garage would last until 2028, when the other bond had disappeared. Fact is, in 2012, we had an audit, an energy audit of the garage, and weatherized it, and did other things over the next 3 years beyond that. And then we did some more repairs of the building. And then all of a sudden, And then we were going to do this the structural assessment of the garage pre-COVID. Then COVID hit, Todd left, things had to shift, and all of a sudden we're looking at a garage that we really need to get the guys out of. Because on some of the Better Back Road webinars that I took, they're really to focus on making your road crew happy, otherwise you could be in real trouble. And right now we have a full road crew. And that's pretty good in this day and age because CDL drivers are being scarfed up 6 ways from Sunday in other towns and everything else. I mean, people are taking from other towns to fill up in this town, depending on what deal that they can make. So the fact that we have a full complement, we'd rather not have the guys work any longer because it's still going to take time to get a bond, to get the construction, to do the engineering. And it's not like it's going to happen in 2024. It's going to be 2025 probably based on normal timelines before the guys are going to get their own garage. And we just would rather not have an OSHA shut us down.
Right. David, have you drafted that yet?
So I put together something for, I think I sent it to you about emphasizing the capital planning element, but it didn't include anything specific to the town garage other than it's an example of a capital project where you would be looking at kind of what are the capital needs of the town, prioritizing them and planning for them over time.
Yeah, I was fine with that. I mean, this was just one of the last little edits, but saying let's look at alternative.
The reason why that was there is because it came up in the planning commission is really that the planning commission is trying to express the interest of the town to be less reactive and more strategic. And so in this particular case, it's an example of like, holy crap, we need to replace the town garage. So let's hurry up and do it as fast as we can. Kind of,
We tried to start it in 2018, 2019.
Right. But it doesn't take it takes longer to consider an alternative, but it doesn't take a long time to say, we should ask the question and just make sure before we proceed. And this is just an example say like, are there other things where we sort of knee jerk and that's the way it's always been done. That's where the garage always is. That's the land that we own. And just to make sure that the decision-making is really taking a step back, not taking time, but changing the paradigm into something like, what are we not asking? And that question came up. Is this the best location for the garage before we spend millions of dollars?
Well, the key is, as fiduciary agents for the taxpayers, we try to make things most economic. And one, we do own the land. You move it, you're going to have to pay for land. And two,
we don't have to talk about moving it.
Well, I was going to say,
because we could never come up with an answer in this meeting now.
But I could give you the reasons why, because you have to think about, it's not just the garage, it's the salt shed.
So all those reasons.
Yeah.
But the public needs to know
That's exactly
that
we have to work on this.
That you are considering all those reasons when you actually work on the project, which is not now.
Yeah.
But I think what she's trying to get at is this particular project, Wayne especially, I will give him all the credit because he's been like bringing it up, right? He has been trying to get this out like years. Guys, we don't have, it's not right now, but we got to start thinking about this.
Right.
And he would bring it up every couple select board meetings. He brought it up at town meeting,
And I would parrot him,
Yeah, and we're like, yes, okay, we get it. And so I think that was the perfect approach. I think your point is well taken, like, okay, so let's start thinking about the capital for that. But what we really were, like in capital planning, we had the conversation like, okay, all right, you're looking out however many years. He's like, all right, so probably here is when we need to start at least having the discussion or whatever. So we really did try with that particular piece. It's just that audit came back a lot worse than what we had thought.
Right. So the planning commission just thinks it's going to be a giant project for the town, so it should be in the town plan because we're going to spend resources and time and money on it. Regardless of whether or not you don't agree with the text that encourages you to consider if that's the best location, which if you choose not to include that, I don't have a problem with that. I think the planning commission would have a problem not mentioning the garage at all. It's like going to the store and not putting milk on your list. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to buy milk. I don't need to put it on the list, but
no, what David was saying, you know, using it as examples, it makes a lot of sense because people are going to be faced with that capital budget.
Right.
But, you know, that statement about let's think about other things, I mean, that it's not going to happen. So why
if you're concerned about that is about morale, perhaps, of people reading it, like, oh my God, we're not gonna get a plan, we're not gonna get a garage if they're gonna start 17-year study on where we're gonna put it.
Exactly. That's the key.
So just to put a bow on what I'm hearing, if you were to suggest that I should incorporate all of the edits that the planning commission offered, with the exception of that last one about the location of the garage.
And adding solar to the.
Yeah, but just in terms of, you know, take that one out, but add a short-term action item to basically, you know, rebuild the town garage or, you know, implement the recommendations of the consultant study.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that it's in there as a short-term high priority.
It's an example of how you get something done when you're serious about it.
Mm-hmm. And but it sounded like you were okay with a mention of the capital planning process, and the town garage is kind of like the current on the table.
Yeah.
So eliminate the part about considering a different location, but keep the part about here's an example of why this long-term planning is important.
Use that as an example and not that due diligence wasn't done.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Because otherwise we can just say, you know, incorporate the edits that were provided by the planning committee.
Yes.
With the exception.
With
of
that
one,
exception.
but add a
Yeah.
short-term act.
And then
That's what
those
I'm taking.
couple other.
Right. You had energy, you had solar. Linda had her
Road
pack,
crew.
her pack change, right?
Yeah.
Road crew.
David's semantic point, we're referring to it as town maintenance facility
Yeah.
for publicity's sake.
Yep, we did that. I think we changed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sound better.
Yeah. That's true. It does sound better.
You don't just park the trucks there, right? You understand.
They do understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm good. Are we good? Because we're good.
So I wanna apologize again for how complicated I personally am finding this process. So we're gonna tell David tonight all of the possible edits that can go into the draft that we will, I know we're gonna next approve whatever.
Right.
The next public meeting on December 19th.
Yeah,
So that means we're gonna direct him now to do these edits.
Which are
He's gonna go do them.
Yeah.
Nothing can change between now and December 19th.
No, that's not
No,
right.
You have up till December 1st.
15 days before 7.
He's gonna deliver a new draft to us by December 4th.
So December.
And
1st.
that new draft will include the edits that
Edits.
you have agreed to this evening.
Okay.
And then you have from the 4th until the 19th to review them. The public has the opportunity to review them.
Can we change them again?
You can change them again, but if you change them
that down.
again, you will have to have another public hearing after the 19th.
Why?
Because the final public hearing, you're putting forward, here's the town plan,
It's done.
it's done, it's final. It's, the public has a chance to comment on it and then you adopt it. So that final public hearing, the public has to have a chance to see the final version that you were going to adopt and have that 15-day notice.
Okay.
But if there were a
So
typo,
the fourth,
If it were a typo, no, but if there's substantive change,
so the fourth is the drop dead date of when we have to have a final plan in notified to the public.
yes.
After the fourth, nothing can change. I'm gonna assume not a typo.
well, hopefully we found them
You-
all.
You can't make substantive changes, but if it's a typo, those are things that you can change, but you can't make a substantive change. That before that, between edits I make and my partner working on this project, actually incorporating those edits in the final document, that's what we're gonna do between now and then.
So we're gonna get a copy of, and I'm not criticizing,
Yeah,
I'm only criticizing the process.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Mhm.
We're gonna get a draft after the fourth.
Yeah, you're gonna get a draft on or about the fourth, that is.
So we have to immediately announce it, because that's 15 days. Or else we missed the 19th meeting, and we gotta do another meeting Christmas Day probably. And, right, and. Right?
Right, so if you, I think that the thinking here is that you would schedule a public hearing on, say, the 19th.
Right.
And
That's an extra.
and I will take those edits, I will produce a new draft of the document, I'll get it to Linda. She'll warn that public hearing with a 15-day notice, and then you go into that public hearing.
But most people tonight, were responsive to the general,
It looks like most of the list was technical edits
right,
Yeah.
on that list,
yeah.
I've not heard anything other than, again, even some of the, comments about E911 dispatch coming from Shelburne, those are technical things. It doesn't change
Right.
the policy of the town of Jericho with regard to E911 service. You're not saying we want it to be this, then it's not today and it should be.
No, they've just been changed.
That's just the way it is, right? The
Right.
ESAP takes the call, the
Yeah.
Shelburne dispatch,
Right.
dispatches will.
I think they figured out it saved them a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But plus, it was actually less expensive than the Williston one.
Sure.
Williston, plus, because they're just changing the activities around the state in terms of how many dispatch centers they have.
ESAPs there are, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
We also should say we can amend the town plan at some point in the future.
Well,
So
that's-
let's say like
Oh.
2 years from now, things have changed, like, I don't know, there's a different health risk, or maybe the regional emergency services comes to fruition, or, something that we would need to accommodate. And our planning commission has done an amendment before, and that's like a much simpler process.
It still has public hearings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Right.
process,
Still the whole
but.
The adoption
but-
process is the same, but the amount of engagement and all of that, you can make amendments.
Right, you
As
might just
many
be
as
updating it.
Depending on what the legislature does this year with all
Right.
those studies that are coming
sure.
in.
Right.
Like we did it for the energy chapter when the
Right.
new regs came out around
Right.
difference.
Because right now it looks like 2025, maybe Eco's plan, but because they want to take in all the stuff that's coming out of the legislature this year with the studies. But energy is pretty much done. They don't expect it much changes there.
Mhm.
We have copies of them.
Okay, so
We just
one
recommend,
last, one last,
okay,
so I'm working up to making a motion. The motion would be something like, go take all these edits and go do them. And I know I've asked it 4 times. What happens if I have another one tomorrow morning? We can't do it without a meeting amongst us because it's an official thing from the select board, or like, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't have a good understanding of how different the edits that SJ wants are. I want to make sure that we're considering those.
well,
So like.
I mean, we can look at them.
Basically, if I make this motion, we're saying no, SJ, right?
Well, we
Depending
could,
on what's in there.
we could look at her list and
Well, it seems like the section should have affordable housing kind Were we working towards those goals in the town plan?
Yeah, so her
Yeah.
first slide was basically, these are all the things that are in the town plan that the Affordable Housing Committee supports. Her second slide was, these are things that we think are really important and wanted to make sure that they are addressed. I think we could look at them and determine, you guys could determine, maybe with our help, if the plan already addresses them and or if additional edits could be made that would do a better job of addressing them. I don't think it's not like a disagreement that they should or shouldn't be in there. It's more like how exactly to accommodate them. Like what's the best place? And so what the planning commission did in certain cases is we actually worked on the text. And in other cases, we just said to David, this is kind of what we're thinking. What do you think? He said, yes, that makes sense. He drafted the text and it was perfect. Because he's part of the discussion. He knows what you're trying to accomplish.
Do we have them?
Yeah, I'm getting.
Throw it up and then poor Linda probably wants to get some sleep since she's not feeling well.
But that's exactly what I mean. Like, we're in this weird spot now, like, we're almost there and all of a sudden it's like, well, you don't really have time now. All this good work went in there, like, it's too late.
You do have time. I mean, that's the purpose of this discussion.
Yeah, I know.
I just think we're close enough where we can do this.
Yeah, let's pull up.
All right, I'm getting it.
SJ's,
So he's the IT guy?
yeah, he's the IT guy.
Not really.
If you could tell, you're using laptops, he's using laptop. I have pencil paper.
Let's spin screen.
Okay. So
We have
thank
to
you guys
create
for
it right
sending
here.
this over.
Just tell us, you can direct it where I can look at it. What you consider where it's addressed in the plan.
Right.
All that seemed there.
This is right. This was.
I think it's
Oh, I can't see it.
underlined in red.
So
My eyes got bad.
Can I
key
jump
point
in?
that I heard SJ emphasize was the need for a variety of housing choices everywhere.
Everywhere.
So the
Can I-
plan does specifically say it is important that there are a variety of housing options and opportunities available throughout Jericho. It emphasizes the village growth areas as being a place where you're gonna see the most. And we're gonna build infrastructure to make that happen, but ultimately, you need to provide a wide range of opportunities everywhere.
She's
Well,
also
I
saying infill is not enough and do not rely on infill to hit your numbers.
So
Yeah.
I think we don't scream that, the SJ's message, like we're a lot more subtle about it. And because if you go back to page 22 and it was in that same paragraph that you were reading. It goes on to say, it is likely that most of this new development will occur as concentrated in and around, so that and around kind of alludes to that. It doesn't have to be in the village centers, so concentrated in and around existing village centers, as low as infill in lower density residential areas. And then here's the rest of that sentence that addresses, I think, SJ's concern. Or in small clusters distributed throughout the town where it is associated with a long-term protection of natural and working lands. So it is not as clear, I think, as the Affordable Housing Committee probably would have liked it to be. But it is in there as a possibility.
This is a town plan, not zoning regulations.
Right,
You have
right.
to have
Mhm,
that fluidness to it.
mhm.
And it is on this very specific subject that I had the most concern, and I know Chuck and I had a nice conversation and he helped me understand some of this stuff. And then I had a nice conversation with Susan and
Sabina.
And I became, in between those two discussions, I had some of these similar concerns, and felt after our conversation that they're compatible, right? Like that zoning regulations would come out of this plan that say we can have a 5-unit house anywhere where there's a single unit house. Not that they're going to, but that this doesn't prevent them. And so that was probably my biggest concern when I first got draft 3. And I was personally got to a point where I was okay with it, but SJ is on the Affordable Housing Committee, so I just want to make sure that those are addressed.
But it sounds like they are. Right?
I think Wendy said it well. It's there. Maybe it's a little bit more subtle than what they're requesting, but like Joe said, you're creating a framework. You're not creating zoning. And we're not all gonna all be here. And so it's really about the goal and the intention.
I'm on the Affordable Housing Committee. We look closely at something like Lafayette Drive. It's 25 houses on 10 acres. Our belief is that should be able to go anywhere in Jericho on 10 acres. Currently, you need over 300 acres to accomplish the housing that's on Lafayette Drive in most of Jericho. But you ought to be able to have a cluster of houses, anywhere where it's environmentally appropriate and where you don't have the, substantial impact.
I think the town plan, Chuck, I do believe that the town plan is drafted. It sets the stage for that goal. The next step will be changing the zoning regs.
Right, I'm not saying to zone it now, but right now, there's a lot of talk in the plan about infill, and you could make the same comment that's a zoning, okay? But the basic idea is, instead of saying all the development is going to be in the next to the village centers, that the plan recognize that more than likely a development that could offer affordability at some sort of scale is not going to happen right in the village center. There aren't 10-acre lots available in the village center. So it's basically acknowledging, instead of saying over and over again, it's all going to happen in this little area, that it could happen.
I think that the plan did a pretty nice job of saying most, they did not say only, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking for it. And so I do think that because of that language, that I think that the things that we need, most of the things that, Chuck and affordable housing in general, and Chuck several more times, I think all those things are possible with this plan.
Right.
And that's why I kind of backed down my initial, when we first got it, when I was like, I don't think we can accept this yet. But I'll be really disappointed and I'm not saying that we're going to do those things. Again, I don't know if I agree with them or not, but what I did not agree with was a plan that would prohibit it.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the premise of the town plan, very much so. But again, for me, where the rubber meets the road is the next step. And if the current planning commission is still the same planning commission and they work with the zoning regs, that's where things will change. Does the town plan, to me, set the atmosphere correctly? I think it does. I didn't find it lacking in any way. I see the goals that the public input had.
Right, exactly.
So I think it's there. As far as that, SJ's comments, was that did we get all of them, or did she have one more? Did we satisfy her?
SJ, feel free to speak if you are able.
Sure, I'd love to. So I sent you the suggested edits. There are a couple of places of word tweaks where it just feels like the sentence that's there is really limiting to just village and village centers. And so there are a couple of places where there's minor word tweaks. Whether you accept them or not is your purview. There are maybe one or two places where I recommend adding a bullet.
Yeah, you've got a bunch here. It's hard for me to tell which ones are.
Yeah, because we need to know
so adding a bullet, let's see, first of all, getting the declaration of inclusion correct is important, especially since those were changes that you all asked for. Scroll down. Adding a bullet here to the intro on page 10, adding a bullet about limited rental stock that remains stagnant despite increasing need, I think is an important bullet to add personally. It's hard to do it in this format that you all requested because there's no context around it. But there are one or two spots where there's a sentence that I'm suggesting, and those sentences are usually spots where I just think that there's a hole. If you scroll down, there's a table where there are different housing types, and I think it's really important to include long-term rental units in that table. But I think that a quick scan of these, anything that's substantive should jump out. The last recommendation. Yep, exactly. I mean, I don't know.
So those, SJ, to me look mostly like you don't have the advantage of the planning commission submitted a spreadsheet and we categorized. Linda went through each edit and said, this is a typo, this is grammar, this is clarification. Seems to me like what your suggestions are, most of them are clarifications.
Yeah, I think 60 to 70% are clarifications, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 substantive bullets or sentences that I would recommend adding.
Can you point out exactly the 3 or 4 that you think are substantive?
So I think she did this one.
Yep, adding long-term rental units.
Okay.
I would say the intro, adding a bullet. So it's intro, page 10, paragraph 1, adding a bullet about that bullet right there, I would suggest.
Is substantive.
Yeah, it is substantive.
And the next one.
Go ahead.
The next one below that.
Delete and replace. Would you, I'm not crazy about that one. Would you, I mean, this is up to the select board, but can we keep what we have and just add your sentence?
Yeah.
So instead of delete and replace, this is intro 10, the box, delete housing is far too expensive for most. And also we might've made an edit on that sentence already.
Yeah, if I remember, it was like, it had been, there was something about it where it was like, you don't need this. You've already said this. It doesn't give you anything.
Yeah, but I do think the point about turnover is a good one that we didn't have before. So I'm okay. I would suggest adding it is fine. I would prefer not deleting the prior sentence.
Then I would scroll down.
How do we want to do this? Do you want me to send these to you as I'm taking them? All right, now I have.
Or just
somehow I ended up being the guy.
I think as we finish this conversation, if you can just send me.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure I'm grabbing these. So
Well, I'm with your concurrence, I'm going to incorporate all of these unless there are things that you specifically have a disagreement about. Everything that I'm seeing are not things that I would consider to be substantive policy. There are things that reiterate and reemphasize, make, add important context or point, but I don't think they change the overall policy direction of the town of Jericho and wanting to create more housing choice, more housing opportunity, more housing affordability throughout the town.
I think, I've said it before, I think this plan is the best one we've got. It's just an 8-year lock-in that worries me. And then the short period of time at the end of the year in budget season, it's just that.
Always going to be there.
Can I ask SJ a clarifying question?
Sure.
Yeah.
SJ, hi.
Yeah. Hi.
On your PowerPoint slide, you had, I haven't seen it pop up in this edit chart, but you had something that was, I forget what it referenced specifically, but you said it was incompatible with the Declaration of Inclusion. And I had thought that we acknowledged that edit because you had submitted that before, and I thought that we changed it.
Yeah, so my slides tonight were to provide context to
Okay.
explain where these edits were coming from, to remind the select board, because I hadn't come in front of them in a while to talk about these things. And I'm sure, though, they probably read from cover to cover the document that I sent them when I sent it to them. I'm sure that they don't remember every detail. So I wanted to reiterate the specific framework through which these edits were intended. And so, yes, I think you're right that what was on those slides, none of that is new. These are the same talking points I've been giving you guys and the select board for the last few months.
Okay, but did you see that correction in draft 3?
Which correction?
It had something to do with medium. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, it's late. It's not in this document. It's not in the document that.
That's not in this.
Oh, yeah, it's
Oh, yeah, we need to finish up soon. though.
No, it's under the allowing affordable housing in all areas of allowing modest housing in all areas of Jericho is an inclusion and equity issue. It's the last slide.
It was specific language though, right? That we might.
Where it is, not allowing the kinds of housing accessible is inconsistent with our declaration of
Okay,
inclusion.
yeah, that
And
was it, medium or below.
right, but
income
Wendy, I
housing.
think what you're saying is we added a statement about that already to the
Yeah.
version 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'd say there are maybe 2 or 3 more on housing page 26. I've got an additional bullet there, which I accidentally didn't put in red right there. That's bolded. Most of the new development is of large houses.
On large lots.
What units we're adding, to our housing stock are only accessible to.
I think we added that already too. Or it's in what Wendy already submitted a lot of edits on your behalf.
Yeah.
That are in
Wendy's the best.
That the select board already has. That's why it's also all coming back to me.
Yeah.
I would say the planning commission doesn't object to any of these edits, which may be redundant to edits we've already provided.
But I
Except
can
for that
check
one
So I'm gonna
change.
send this to you as is. Okay, good?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
perfect.
sense, because we do need to move on, but.
Well, I know we do, but like,
I know.
to do it, then
Yeah.
if we have to cut it short, then we need to figure out a different way and like push the other plan out so that we don't expire or, you know what I mean? Like, we have to do it right.
Yeah, we
or-
do, absolutely,
And
but
we're
I
not
think
given the
we're close to, being able to finish what you need to do tonight, or if you're comfortable, is the key.
It's a 10-year plan. Every line is as important as every line on the budget.
It's an
We
8-year.
haven't even get to look at the budget yet. And all we've done is.
But you will look at every line.
At the end of the day, you will get another draft to
Yeah.
look through, and if there are real sticking points, you can make those changes
Yeah.
and schedule another public hearing. That, as I told Susan, the world will not come to an end if the town plan expires and you don't have one to fill the gap. There are certainly things you can't do.
Did Eric?
As a municipality.
I lied.
You can't do. There
There's some things you can't do without a town plan in effect. But again, the world's not gonna come to an end, so if there's a really pressing matter that you.
We just
feel
can't
is
go
missing,
funding it, or, you get a
Right.
nice new grant.
You can't change your zoning regulations to do all the things that,
That's right.
That said, it's not a good look
right.
and it would be very
I know.
disheartening.
We're there.
I think we're really honestly all on the same page. All right,
I think so.
I will make a motion to accept the public input and the edits that are suggested to forward to, I forget the name of your firm.
Sterling.
Sterling Mountain Community Consulting to put the final edits on for draft 4 and hopefully the final draft of the town plan.
I'll second it. I want to make sure you were done.
Yeah.
Very
All those
reverent,
in
Joe.
favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much for all the effort.
Okay, and you're gonna warn the hearing.
So.
Okay, I'm gonna stay till that's done.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
thank you for all the effort that you put in as well, David.
Thank you for the clap.
Yes.
As soon
Yeah.
as that, I've invested interest.
Yeah,
Have your email?
Yes. David at Sterling Mountain Planning.
or you could send it to Linda and Linda could send it to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
You know, I like my kids to live here, but I don't want them next to me. Close enough.
A lot of people said that. A lot of people said that. Yep. I want my kids to be able to move here.
For sure.
Okay, and so with that, I will make a motion to warn the second public hearing of the town plan on December 19th. Oh, we're doing 5:30? That we're doing?
I thought we were gonna do 6:30.
No, actually, yes, that is being amended. We're doing 6:30 because that's the standard planning commission meeting time.
Our standard time is actually at 7, but we're okay
Yeah,
doing it 6. So that's a Tuesday. It's actually the planning commission meeting and we are giving our slot to you guys. Because the week before is Hanukkah and the week after is very close to Christmas.
Right.
that's right.
So, and it also gives David a little bit more time and it gives you guys a little bit more time.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to warn the second public hearing of the town plan on December 19th at 6:30 PM. That is a Tuesday, for those of you paying attention.
I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you so much.
David, thanks.
I'll get to
Thank
work.
you.
David, one more time, David, your email address, David.
David at Sterling Mountain Planning, one word, .com.
Linda, I know you're probably dying
Oh, yeah, that's.
for a nap. Can you stay on for 2 seconds while we go through
Yeah.
the?
No, I'm
Alternative.
okay.
You're
I wanted to say
catching
thank
second
you.
wind?
Thank you for getting through all of that. I really wish that I could have been there in person because it was really difficult to stay quiet here on my computer. I didn't want to interrupt.
But now we're going to get to review and consider approval of alternate transportation grant application for the MMU sidewalk.
Yeah, so. Linda, you want to take this? You want me to lead in?
Can you lead in? My brain's a little scrambled.
Absolutely. So Joe, I think I might have given you a little background. So this is
I know exactly.
okay, so you know what's going on. So basically, we had applied for a grant. We didn't receive. That was a significantly larger grant to finish the last section of the multimodal path connecting Jericho Center to Mount Mansfield High School.
Did Linda was gonna find out, get an update of why we didn't get it that time, or is?
Well, I can give you, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did get that. Yep.
And Linda, feel free to jump in. I think there were three points that were made that we've tried to address in the proposal that we're about to put forth for the application. One was there was no explicit involvement from the school or school district regarding what would happen once the path crosses onto their property across the Lee River. The other was lack of explicit mention of economic impact, positive economic impact, which is, Linda, I don't know if you agree. I think we discussed it. It's somewhat odd.
And it's very odd for that sidewalk. They didn't ask for it before.
Right. Well, the reality is it's sort of it's a one-way travel lane, or even were we funded for this, it'll be a one-way travel lane between the high school, all the people at the high school, and the village center, and all the people who live in the center. So I think in terms of net economic impact, I don't see it as being a lot of direct impact, but the more
It just makes it
the
safer
more
for
bike
students to
pedestrian
bike.
development we can do, the more commitment we're showing to that part of upholding the vision for the town plan. What we hear over and over again is people want to be able to walk and they want to be able to bike and they want to be able to get out of their cars.
And there are people who would certainly go use the fields, at MMU and things like that, but it was also, you know, there's the public safety issue, I keep mentioning it because,
Oh, yeah.
we had, people who, you know, whose daughters, you know, would run that way and they're very concerned about,
It's a terrible intersection to try to get across.
Well, I've seen, so I drive my kids to school. I drive my son to Browns River Middle School, and on my way back to town hall, pardon me. Wow, that was almost on cue. That's my son telling me UVM just won the soccer game. I see kids going to the high school coming from the village center, walking across that bridge during rush hour traffic with high school drivers going to the school, and it is super dangerous.
absolutely.
And
Can you take a picture of that sometime that we can include in the grant application? Like not in a creepy way, but
yeah,
like
trying to get a picture of somebody on the bridge with a line
of the
of traffic behind
students.
them.
Yeah, I think that would really help support the safety issue that we need to, I guess, make a better case for here.
Pull over my truck.
And Linda, what was the third point? I've completely lost track of it. It was the economic impact. It was partnership with the school.
I think the other one was something we didn't have much control over, which was providing access to underserved or underprivileged communities.
Right. Yeah.
So we didn't really have a good way to counter that argument, but I don't think that means we shouldn't continue to try to get a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a toughie. I mean, we went through a couple of those webinars for the Safe for All or whatever.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
just meet the standards there.
Yeah.
But
So the approval, the request for approval really revolves around the expected cost share that the town would have to provide should we receive the grant. The grant is in the amount, the grant would be provided in an amount up to $600,000 during this round of funding. If we were to receive funding at that level, the cost share would be 20% to the town, or $120,000.
No, it's 150 because it's based on the total cost. So-
152, right? Isn't there a comment in our packet that says
What did I miss, Linda?
200,000?
well, it's 150, then I mean.
Yeah, it's 150. Because the 80/20 is based on the total project cost. So if you take a total project cost of 750,000,
Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
80% is 600,000 and 20% is 150,000.
Correct. I was thinking about the grant amount and not our additional contribution on top of it.
Yeah. And so we've been working, or I've talked to Tyler, our town engineer, to get updated cost estimates, and I don't have anything final yet, but you know, if the project would exceed 750, the town would then be responsible for any additional costs. Right now, I think it could be likely that it would exceed 750, just because there is the bridge issue. But as I mentioned last time we discussed the project, we're looking at the possibility of reusing an old bridge. The one that the town has at the town garage, we think might be too short, but we'd need to remeasure. But VTrans also potentially has some other bridges that we could look into repurposing. So, you know, we're looking at ways to minimize the cost as much as possible. But in the end, even if we had to contribute let's say $200,000 of town funds, you know, that's better than the total cost of $800,000. You're still getting an $800,000 project for $200,000.
At least it gets everybody over the Lee River.
Who is creating the estimates for this?
So the original estimates, Linda, you generated those with Tyler, correct?
Tyler, yeah, well, I had input from Tyler and from Chittenden County Regional Planning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in that email, that second email where it's an email from Linda Collar that says minimum of 150,000 in that fund, but I think it's more likely to be limited of 200,000.
Yeah, and that was always the most expensive part of the whole sidewalk, was getting across the bridge.
Yeah, and if you think about that cost versus a potential injury to a student walking on the road, I think it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Be kind of cool if we could use the old bridge though.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been trying to figure out ways to use that old bridge.
Boy, it's ugly though. I haven't gotten to look at it.
But you know, because it has so much stuff
Down across it.
Yeah.
and so much growing over it right now, but it's incredibly heavy bridge.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it's gonna roll down to the channel right now.
Yeah.
They have to maintain the volume now. There's a channel with it it's ridiculously high number now for a lot of cases.
That's true.
So like I said.
Oh, the new water going.
Yes, yes, you have to have a substantially higher size in a lot of cases. And I don't know if the existing one changes that, because it says make one bigger and one not, but I don't know if they look down the road more.
Yeah.
So with this motion, you're looking for approval to apply for the grant, basically. My question is this. Does this commit us to spending the match? Let's say the grant comes through. This doesn't mean we necessarily have to accept it, right?
Correct.
It's correct. You don't have to accept the grant if it comes through, but based
Could
on.
we please accept it if it comes through though? Like, why would we not?
Trying for years to get that bridge across.
So I'm 100% supportive of it, but like budget season's on, I don't know what the likelihood of us getting it, like, to just spend $200,000 right now, like, because it's cut, it seems a little.
I like to know too, that if we get it, we're not committed.
Yeah.
We never know what the next flood's gonna bring. We might want that $200,000 for a bridge to get a car across and not.
Yeah, you have that, but you also have the, the town plan with that's why we also keep our emergency reserve.
That's fine, but I just have that safeguard that, yeah.
Yeah,
But you don't
feels
have to
weird to spend
200 at once is the key. It's only over the project life, which is usually several years, 3 years anyway.
Okay.
And just to throw this out there, there's no, given the way our ARPA funding is currently structured, that funds could be applied. It is infrastructure. Well, again, it wouldn't, the hope would be that we wouldn't have to use a substantial amount.
Other things.
So these grants are federal money, and there is a pretty lengthy federal process that I'm sure some of you have gone through before you get to actual construction. That typically takes 3 years minimum. So let's say we do get this grant award in early 2024, the construction date is likely going to be like 2027, which is when we would need, the full 200,000 available.
So you've got time to put it away too.
Yeah, you have multiple years to put it away.
And we would be starting out on that.
But 2028.
Everybody's tax goes up by.
Yeah, but.
So obviously we need to do it. It's just that it just feels weird to just spend $200,000 after putting that much scrutiny on, but I'm good with it. So I think it's important to apply for the grant. What do you think our chances are of getting it? If you had to, yes.
If I had to guess, I'd say 50-50. This is the third time we've applied, so I'm hoping third time's the charm, but you know, with these programs, you just never know.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion to approve, the alternative transportation grant application for the NMU sidewalk.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, here's another.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Review and consider funding allocation for the final rock work at Old Red Mill.
Alrighty, so as everyone is aware, one of the key components of moving the work forward on the Old Red Mill foundation stabilization project is to drop the level of the mill pool to a point where it will not continue, the river level won't continue to erode the foundation.
So are you talking, is this the pool above it?
No.
The pool
At
below
that
it.
corner where you have
Okay,
the wall and then the
so you
foundation.
dig that down.
So actually, no
We did that a
digging,
little bit already.
no digging involved. We took a boulder, 2 boulders of significant size were moved around this time last fall. A bunch of debris was removed, dropped the level significantly. Our geotechnical engineer came back this spring after, so this was, trying to think, was he here after the July flood or was it before?
He may have been here before.
I think he was here just before, but there was a recommendation that another boulder in the center basically be split and tipped so that it can't continue to accumulate debris, and it'll keep the river level, it'll flush through and it won't gather.
So the geotechnical expert recommended doing this.
Yeah, so this was a phase.
It's ours, not the.
Yeah, this is a consultant.
The NRCS.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a consultant from Brierley Associates. They work out of Massachusetts, and so once this is complete, we need to figure out how to repair the crack in the foundation before the total stabilization can be done. So ECI recognized that there was a crack when they started doing their initial boring for the stabilization process and drilling. They got nervous and decided they did not want to continue without further investigation from a geotechnical engineer and an assurance that the foundation as it is now is as stable as it could possibly be moving forward.
It's been an exhausting drama to try to get that fixed. Like started the very first select board meeting I was on, we started talking about, okay, what if we do this? Okay, we have this engineering plan, this is all that needs to be done. Goes out
So
to,
keep seeing scope creep on it.
yeah, it goes out to bid and they're like, well, I won't do it unless it includes this.
Huge
Because
scope creep.
even though we have an engineering report saying to go do this exact thing, people who are the ones bidding are the ones that have to do the work, right? They're like, well, I'm not gonna do it because it might break this.
Yeah,
But we have this engineering, so anyway, that's how it started, and then don't worry, whatever we approve tonight won't be able to get done, because something else will be like, we were gonna split the rock, but there's something underneath it. And we're gonna have to move that first before we can move the rock, before we can lower the water, before we can do this thing, before we can do that, before we can actually fix the crack.
And probably all has to be finished before 2020. No, December 31st, 2024.
So again, I'm new.
Yeah.
Just typically, if we have a qualified consultant make recommendations, I'm probably gonna be on board with it.
Yeah.
All right, as long as we've looked at bids and so on, I'm fine with that. Again, You know, you see scope creep, it happens, I mean, it happens all the time. I get a little nervous when sometimes it's the boxes in the end house.
Yeah,
As if the one saying, you know, we gotta do more is the one who.
has some financial gain
Yes,
potentially.
so it makes me a little nervous on that, but again, if we have an independent.
Yeah.
Outside of ECI
Oh, yeah.
evaluating it. My only, I guess.
The fascinating thing is the scope creep came from the government.
Yeah, well,
Because.
NRCS,
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was an EWS grant. Emergency water.
okay,
And what happened was they had put it up, you know, they have their engineers, which is a segment of Du Bois and King. And they had thought just repairing the wall would be about $300,000 to bring it back to where it looks like the rest of the wall that all sloughed off. But then they had the bid, put it out to bid. A bunch of firms came to look at it, looked at that crack down the wall of the old mill and said, not touching it, not touching it. So the engineers went back and said, okay, let's do this. They started, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think they wouldn't,
And
they
eventually-
couldn't do it until something else happened first, so that's why we're all the way down to the river now.
And then they put it out to bid again after all of this fancy new engineering, and it was up to $750,000. And because a lot had to be done to stabilize the building, and they figured out they could do this and that. And so I was there at the bid, the pre-bid thing. Long, thank God, my kid was still with them. And only two firms bid this time. And then by the, only two people came to look for the pre-bid. In the end, only one did. So that was ECI, and they've been good to work with. And the natural resources folks are happy with them. And he's the one who suggested, he said, you better get your own geotechnical engineer. And so the one we got is really, he's just a character.
we own, the town owns this property.
No.
That's even more, that's
Oh.
a much, that's a much.
I look, on the other side, I heard, I call it chirping from hockey. I've heard the chirpings from both sides on some of this stuff too.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the reason I'm going
There's a
to.
grant application, basically, the short story of that answers the question, anytime there's grant application, we need to be the body that does it.
Okay.
We are the co-signer or whatever, it's ours in that sense, of anything that comes with cost for it.
Yeah, because we wish.
We need to start charging for pictures from the dam, from the bridge, from the old mill, so we can afford it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the key was, this was a way to get a grant to help the old mill, and the deed structure is such that the old mill no longer can take care of itself, it reverts back to the town anyway.
Okay, all right.
But that's the deed, and so, this is going to supposedly get us down to water, and so that, in the spring, maybe, we'll actually get to work on the foundation, and then they get to work on the wall. The key is, the old mill contributed money, Louise McGonigal went out and raised a whole bunch more money, and so they brought about, I think she deposited initially 94,000 on the basis of the old mill. And then the town voted overwhelmingly to support the old mill building itself in the historical society to the tune of $18,561, but whatever the tax rate ends up being each year for 10 years. And so there is a reserve fund for it, and right now we're still working, because I would consider this part of the wall work and not the actual foundation work.
Yeah.
And so that's on the old mill's dime.
Yep.
But when it starts the foundation work, that's where the town would step in, but it's not, it's all in the same reserve fund, but it's essentially the town dollars at that point, because that's the foundation, and NRCS said we're not touching that. That's your once you fix that, then we'll come back with our grant.
Okay.
Because right now it's sitting in Washington on hold. So that's where we are.
You'll make your first motion, Joe?
Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the ECI estimate of $30,800 for repairs to the old mill.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Eric, can you hand this to Catherine?
Oh, isn't that exciting? We're into updates.
No, keep in mind, I got 45% battery on my.
Oh, yeah, I have to bring a charger. I don't even bother. They're usually.
Oh, I have to sign as buyer?
You are the buyer, Catherine.
Oh, okay, I used this. I was just basically, okay, so did they want? No? Yeah. This is November. 2023.
Print one and signature one.
No, just a buyer signature. I just don't like to that.
You go, oh, it's Ben, okay, Ben.
There.
Oh, thank you. Eric, you want to slide that over so I can.
Okay, so now it is time for updates. And all kinds of things. One of the biggies is that the drafts of the S100 studies are starting to come out for public comment. The designation study, which means that Act 250 would come down to the municipal level, is really now being ordered to gear to the bigger municipalities with the staff that can do that, as opposed to the smaller communities. There still is the Act 250 study. That's a different one.
Yep.
And
Been
that
tracking.
looks like it might come out by December 1st for comment, because they all have to be done by December 31st. And VAPTA is, I think, doing the one on the Act 250. And I think one of the VAPTA ones, which they were doing too, the other one may be out for comment now. And just to keep going, I did 2 more webinars recently. And one was on 88-101, and it wasn't have to do with what's going on at the library.
Right.
This is actually how to create a more welcoming community. And it was presented by the VLCT plus the Department of Health and the Vermont Council of Independent Living. And not surprisingly, considering the age of the population, 1 in 4 Vermonters have disabilities. And so what they did was they discussed the kinds of disabilities, the needs, the social and medical models dealing with disability. But and I got lots of notes, but the interesting one that we generally don't think about for ADA is your website and working with tabs.
I saw the slide deck.
And even, I don't even think we've ever thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a whole, I should know it.
But they talked a little bit about it and gave some places, to consider.
You mean as choosing tabs to navigate within a website?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a whole,
I guess because or things like that. But yeah, they talked about that. It was fascinating.
So I think what we want to do there is to just check in with, I think it's WCAG 2.1 or section 508.
Well, what are you're talking wild language there.
Yeah. It's basically what she's talking about.
WCAG.
WCAG 2.1, I think is what it's.
Yes, that sounded like what they had said.
That's the software that allows you to.
No, it's a standard. So it's basically the ADA.
Oh, okay.
So it is the ADA. It's just section 508 of whatever WCAG stands for. But basically there's a way to So you take your website and you run it through that thing and it'll run a checker. It'll be like, hey, you don't have a tab thing here, you don't have this here. So it's probably worth just checking with our
With tech group and
tech
see if
group
they have
and
some.
see if they
Will
may
do.
do that or they may not, I don't know. And if they don't, it's probably something we need to consider.
And then I went through, and then I went to the Public Service Department, public opinion on the renewable energy standards. And it was very data driven. They really are working their way through, particularly engaging disadvantaged, Vermonters as well. So that they really did a good job of using surveys and focus groups and stuff.
Who provided that webinar, Kathy?
That was the Public Service Department.
Public service.
Say it again.
The Public Service
How
Department.
did you-
No, before that, what were you saying, the disadvantage, say it again?
The disadvantaged population, because they wanted to reach out because these people typically are, ignored when it comes to energy, and having heat and talking about solar. Oh, yeah, sure, I'm gonna put solar, I can't even afford to feed my kids,
Okay.
kind of stuff. Because this, the state has passed renewable energy standard. And so they used surveys and focus groups and talked about different ways of looking at the questions and how they would structure the question, would make one thing more than another. And by the time they were all through though, by the time it was finished, the majority supported a low carbon footprint and renewables with increased view to help the disadvantaged, especially not able to do on their own, do solar and things like that. So what the next step is, they're going to create the draft summary of the process today and the key takeaways for review, because the legislature, there's another thing for the legislature, and then eventually comes up with things like that. So, but no, it's a big slide deck. Wants it. Actually, the first one, because it has VLCT, they have a link on their website to go to that particular document and see what they said. Otherwise, I'm good.
My only updates are, and I hate to be a squeaky wheel, but what's going on with our signs?
Oh, God.
Like,
Yeah, I know.
at least the portable ones. Like,
I know.
we
So
need to just hire someone else to go put them out.
I don't think so. I'm still waiting so Dan Peck, who's the transportation engineer that's been working on the Lead River sidewalk design. He just got me the suggested locations for those.
Oh, good. Finally.
And so basically what I asked is like, I don't know where to put them. We could guess.
Yeah.
And he gave me exact locations. Those, now what I have to figure out is based on those locations, I have to figure out what address they correspond to. So that when they're put in place, we can get they work off of a satellite system.
Okay.
So there's like a GPS input that Paula will have to do on the receiving end. So we got to input an exact location based on address. So I've been waiting for Dan. I just got those back. John has been he's been on vacation this week. So probably won't be until after.
What kind of signs are they? I'm sorry to,
So these are the portable, just the portable speed signs.
Oh, okay,
Or you can
yeah.
just drag them.
yeah, I've seen a lot of can they see one down, Lee River Road, Brown Straits intersection, can they see one there?
Yeah, that was one of those,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
That was
So Select Board has gotten a lot of feedback.
Yeah, and I know
from residents about what are we gonna do about speeding, what are we gonna do about speeding. This is a thing we can do, and
Okay.
so we spent some ARPA money on them, and so I've just been kind of trying to get them out there. And I know people are working on it, it's just.
No, I share your frustration. Paula and I have talked to those guys over and over again. We've had a lot of conversation about the need to have it happen, and they're trying to balance those requests with all the other things they're trying to get.
Should it only go on town highways?
There are some, but where we want.
We can put them wherever we want.
There are.
Yeah,
What's the bigger, but, and the other issue, the ones up in the center, I know
Yeah,
Bob
that
and
was-
those folks are gonna be here too. I don't know what's going on with those. I'll talk to Fletcher tomorrow and try to find
Yes.
the lowdown.
Because, you know,
I know functionally what the problem is, and I keep being told
Yeah,
somebody needs to get on the phone with a customer service or a
yeah,
text.
exactly,
Well, they know what to do, but I'm like, when's it gonna happen?
yeah.
They gotta get on, they gotta get on
Go
with the
up
technical
Sawzall
courts.
And chop them down and park one of the portable ones there, like, you know what I mean, like.
Right.
Right, like, they're just
You know,
never gonna,
I thought
it's feeling like they're just never gonna work.
Well,
But you know what I mean, I know I'm being extreme, but
No,
like,
I think
they've
it's
been
right.
broken for like, okay, they're just not gonna work.
well, those worked for a total of a week.
Yeah.
The
Until
ones
somebody
they put
ripped
up
the
in the
wires.
center.
You're
Somebody,
kidding me.
no.
yeah, somebody vandalized the wires.
So now.
Can we electrocute it? Can we juice it?
It's unbelievable.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I mean.
Eric, I'm with
we
you. I
have
share
the
your
two
distress and I'm
permanent ones, and those
frustrated that
vandalized
we're
the
not
first
seeing
week.
any
And the
traction.
4 portable ones, because people wanted the different roads, you know, this person wanted this road, and so we got 4 to move around the
Put a
town.
stop sign at every intersection.
No, the VLC, the RPC doesn't recommend that, and you know, if you talk to the senior.
I will
planners
get
anywhere-
a projected date to you by the day end tomorrow. I'll give Fletcher a shout in the morning and try to pin him down.
I mean, it's certainly more dangerous to speed, but it's not as much of a problem.
Yeah.
When it's light out until 9 o'clock, and
Yeah.
people are flying, you know,
Yeah.
so like.
But, you know, when you think about all the crazy things that happen, well, this goes along with what I was gonna ask for, it's more ARPA spending. But, you know, when you think about all the crazy things that happened in the center within the last few weeks with, you know, a pedestrian almost getting hit and the sign getting, you know, broken, and, you know, it was a pedestrian crossing sign, in fact, that got toasted. You know, Paula had worked hard on the grant application, I guess it was a couple of years ago, and we, you know, with all the things that happened in between, we haven't done it, followed up, but, you know, it got turned down. But the center, which is actually the original historic Jericho, has the crappy old gooseneck lights where the other parts of town have the nice, pretty streetlights. And the grant, you know, was about $25,000 that we asked for. So I'm thinking, if we go ahead and get 4 of those lamps, well, actually, I think we have to get a different version because they don't make those anymore. But the idea was there would be around the green 4 of these lights. And would provide more, better, lighting for pedestrians. Particularly one across from the, store, because if you drive, particularly in the winter, and somebody's getting out of the passenger side and starts walking across to come, even if they want to walk over to the crosswalk. You're driving, you can't see them until they're out in the road.
Yeah, I remember that, we talked about that early on, my.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to think about spending ARPA money on it. We just need to find out what it would cost again to revisit that particular.
I can talk with Paul about that. I've had relatively limited engagement around ordering the lights. What I do know is that when we tried to replace the light that got knocked over, we still have one that's missing next to the Ale and Bean.
Yeah.
And I think they're back ordered for like a year and a half. Big time supply chain issue. So yeah, I'll re-engage Paula.
Yeah, because we have to get in line.
See what we can do.
You know, at least if it's ordered, you know, and you've got the money out the door.
So I've got in the good news around return on ARPA investment, the ice rink is on its way.
That's so
They're
cool.
going to be putting it up on the weekend of December. I think it's December 10th and 11th. Anton,
How big do they go?
so I don't know, but it's gonna. I know. So I'm thinking it's gonna fill. You know the little basketball court next to the tennis courts at the elementary school.
Yep.
It'll fit in there. It's equivalent in size to the one they have up in Underhill Center.
Yep.
And Anton Kelsey, who's on the rec committee, teaches at the high school, made the recommendation about the iron sleeve kit that he suggested JES purchase is going to help oversee the construction of the rink, because they've been through it at least 5 times now, and it takes some, takes some getting to know.
Well, for years I did the Westford Rink.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I helped put up, take it down.
Oh, great. So you know what's going on.
Yeah, it's, once you insist on it, goes.
Yeah. So
I was
Anton,
just wondering if the Mount Municipal boys could have practice there instead of 5 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know if it's quite that big, Joe. And I'll send you the photos. I just got them late this afternoon. Kevin Hamilton sent a bunch of photos of the new disc golf course they put up at the middle school. A little late in the season for disc golf, but they've got it, and they had the first one installed, and they were all fired up. So they sent the photos over, which I'll share. So Linda and I went to the Northern New England Town Planning Conference last week in Portsmouth. For me, it was an opportunity to better understand the regional town planning community and hear more about what's happening in regard to affordable housing, infrastructure development. I think one of the more interesting workshops I attended was put on by a woman who leads what seems to be the statewide initiative for affordable housing in the state of New Hampshire. And they are doing some really interesting work using social media and video to educate people about the benefits. So again, a lot of it's like Mythbuster type stuff. Like, does affordable housing mean Section 8? Am I going to have, significant influx of people on state support living in my neighborhood?
Can you do like TikToks and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's these really quick videos. And again, I don't think there's any reason, well, 2 things. I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't do something like that here once we generate more momentum around affordable housing and potential. I also thought that is something that we could employ for the town garage. We could put together like a quick video that would do like a video tour of the parts of the garage that are challenged. Get Matt on talking about, from his perspective as a consultant, what the needs and benefits will be for the community.
And you can do ones with the people that are in.
Sure, yeah, have the road crew talk about, their constraint, how having the new town maintenance facility will help them do their work more efficiently.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
The other thing I would, when you started saying about the front porch forum now allows you to do pictures.
Yeah.
We could, add a picture.
We
if
can.
We need to start, posting about why we need a new garage.
We can. Which leads to another discussion, which I think bears having, which is talking about the bonding and the ballot and the timing on that.
Yeah.
So
when are we gonna have that discussion?
Well, I don't know.
We're out of time.
Well, actually, that's something you can discuss. As I was told, I was talking to John today, that this is the case for other business. Because you're talking about it tonight, but you're not necessarily making the decision, what your wording is going to be on the warning or things like that.
Right.
But, the idea is, okay, which one is it going to be? Town meeting or, she's talking, initially, Jessica was talking about the primary,
Right.
which is August.
Correct.
And of course, this is going to take so much time anyway, but I was thinking, why not town meeting? Because you can talk about it, what's on the ballot on town meeting.
Sure.
But it's also the presidential primary granted, there's an incumbent, but it's still the presidential primary that also brings out more people.
Right.
The August primary doesn't bring out a whole lot of people, depending on
What's the August primary?
the state offices.
Oh. So the presidential primary for
Is,
Vermont is town meeting day?
yeah, 1 year, one of the first years that I had to run, it really drew a lot of people because it was Obama versus Clinton on the Democratic side. And I ended, because I was on the ballot then, I got more than both of them.
Take that, Obama.
I beat your guys.
That's quite a claim to fame.
I thought that was pretty funny.
So,
She told me.
full disclosure, my intent up until I had that conversation with Jessica, allowing for the potential to put it on the ballot for the primary in August, is to move, full head of steam. Having never been responsible for putting a project like this through to a bond vote, again, it's really hard to gauge how much the word gets out through these meetings and through the presentation that Matt did. We have it on the website. So we're making a lot of assumptions about how word is trickling out and what the implication will be.
Yeah, we need to start posting,
And
maybe not almost on a weekly basis, but every other week, because people will get tired of reading you. But
yeah. And so I want to sit down and kind of need to think of a strategy that'll build momentum up until we're able to get warn it to get on the ballot.
If the roads aren't plowed, you're gonna see a lot of momentum.
Yes.
If the roads aren't getting taken care of.
Yes.
Our challenge is we as a select board, one, we need to decide if we want it on there. I think we all are in mostly agreement with that. But we don't want to put it on there unless we really want people to vote for, we want to put it on there because we don't want to just be like, well, what do you guys think? Right? We want, I want it.
right,
If it's something that's going on there because of result of something we're doing, it needs to go on there and we need to be 100% behind it, which we are.
It's a critical need.
And I guess I forget when the last date is of when we have to have those. Like, it's one of those things you gotta work. It's just like the town plan, right? You gotta work your way back. Like, oh, it's gotta be done by this date. Oh, but the printers it's sent to the printers on this date. Well, the select board meeting before that is this date. So then you end up like, I have to do it right now. So
yeah, that's why we end up with a bunch of different meetings in the end of January. Because there is a date that you have there's a date before which you cannot work and announce the warning. It has to be after whatever date is set, and Jessica would know because it's so many days between that date and town meeting. And then there's of course then Paula needing to get things to the printers.
Yeah.
But you really can't vote on a warning until that specific date, and there is the early, they'll tell you what the earliest date is.
I'll send you the date reminder. I think I forwarded the document that Jessica got from the secretary. Oh, you have it in front of you.
Yeah, and she ended up saying that this looks like town meeting, sounds like a good one to her.
Yeah.
And I think it is, because I think because it is a presidential primary, even though, there isn't the excitement of an open race. You still are going to have people coming out because it is primary for the president.
Well, you'll have 2 select board positions on there too.
And there'll be 2 select board positions, one for 1 year and one for the 3 years. So I mean, people will come out for that. So between now and January, we need to have some,
Wait a minute, I only get 1 year.
right, because that's when it's turn, you have to run again.
You just have to make a double basketball player.
That's right.
You only work for one, okay.
But just don't put a date on it, just use it.
Yeah.
Say,
I don't have a date. I didn't think of it at the time, but I'm looking at them. They'll still.
And so you just need a sign that you can use for this year and then one for next year.
Maybe the water bottle will still be good by then.
But, that made me, speaking about the garage, made me think that one of the, early back roads webinars that I went to, to learn about, the program. They talked about the importance of supporting your road crew. And how, if you really want to keep your road crew and, help them be productive, you really
Yeah.
need to take care of them.
And Matt emphasized.
Which was not news to us.
Yeah.
No.
And
Well-
Matt emphasized that over and over again, and I
Yeah.
think, I think fortunately, our road crew, they understand the challenge of putting through a project like this. I don't necessarily see I don't see their commitment at this point being contingent on having a new town garage tomorrow, but they definitely want to see our investment and momentum behind it.
Absolutely. I mean, because we can't.
They've
give it
been
to-
super patient. They had, we had to go through the whole heat debacle and
Oh, yeah.
all of that. So
But at least the furnaces are in and I guess functional.
I'm committed. I also happen to know a young videographer who I'll bet would help us put a video together for the right price.
I want to TikTok.
You want to
I want
TikTok?
to just come up with my little.
Sure, I think that's a good idea.
Does that include drone?
Sure.
Okay.
What's that?
Drone? Well, no, I mean, there's,
Well, you, that's right. You have all these different perspectives.
yeah, drone footage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
probably the way to do that is town should probably buy me a drone. Teach me how to use it, and then I'll do it for free.
You have to, because if you do it for pay, you gotta get your pilot's license.
I know, I heard that.
You're kidding.
Yes, if you have a drone and if you take fees for it, you have to get the drone license.
Yeah.
But if you
Wow.
just do it for fun, you're okay.
Yeah, I heard that too. My friend just got one, and he's taking some cool pictures of it, but
Yeah, drones are huge for surveyors and engineers that were flying stuff.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Too much personal, but anyway, yeah, I think drone would be good if the part of the failure of it is the outside. Or the up top.
yeah.
Yeah,
It would be really good to get that.
will do. I'll
Yeah,
report
so
back.
that's great ideas. I mean, because we need to start,
Yeah.
at least continuing to mention in this meeting why we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And why we have
And we
to.
basically have,
And then
4
between
months.
January and March and town meeting, and early voting starts sometime in February, we really gotta
yeah,
get the public word out.
will do. Full court press.
Yeah.
I want to give you an update, McMullen property. So Steve from All Phase is doing a winterization inventory, shut the water off. He's going in, he's going to be looking at all the pipes, putting in antifreeze where necessary.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I meant to ask that about that.
No,
updates.
and again, it was actually everything came together today, unusual circumstance. He was here to get the keys to go down and start doing the work. We at the same time heard from the water district asking if we wanted to keep the water on through the winter, and we said no. So we're not going to be there's not going to be any more water service until we require it again moving forward. I can't even remember what the date was. I think it's Tuesday after Thanksgiving, which is the 27th. The fire department's going to be there. They're going to do a chimney fire thing. They're going to put fake smoke up the chimney, and
At that house?
yeah, they've been using they've done. This will be the 3rd training operation they've done.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, which has been great. And then you all will be able to talk more about this with Brian on Tuesday. We had a meeting with Fred Duplessis, who's the lead auditor. You look like you know Fred. Oh, you do?
He had done the RBC for years.
Okay. So yeah, super
He's
kind.
Super nice guy.
Again,
Really
we
nice guy.
were really trying to just reconfirm how we're structuring the ARPA reporting looking to March. and how it's going to, how the funds are going to appear. And he, so he gave us great guidance there. Won't go into great detail, but Brian's clear on how we need to, how it needs to be represented in the budget and how it needs to be reported. He also said that the select board is going to need to, select board is going to need to make a motion with a spreadsheet indicating expenditures to date and a recommendation for allocation of the funds that'll remain in reserve and for what purpose as part of the reporting. So I reached out to Katie Buckley from VLCT. Fred said she likely has a script that select boards have been using to right, to go on the record and make those approvals known. So I will let you know about that. And yeah, I think that's
That's great.
That's it.
We have UES.
Oh, actually, legislative breakfast, December 5th. CCRPC, Catherine, I don't know if you're.
Charlie knows I don't go to breakfast.
Oh, is that right? Last year, I think you were under the weather last year.
I had pneumonia last year.
Right.
The first year I was chair, I had to do it because but it was easier to do because it was COVID and we did it by Zoom.
Gotcha.
And that was okay, but 7:30 at some place downtown, nah, not happening.
Yeah, good for you.
And in fact, as our new chair, because we.
Who is the new chair?
Chris West, not Chris West. Chris from South Burlington, and he's not going to be there either. He's going to be traveling. So Bard Hill from Richmond will have to do the opening remarks.
Gotcha.
But we typically serve about 2 years as chair. I mean, we can serve longer, but by the time you're there, you've spent so many years. It's not fair to keep being here. I think we need to move people through a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
So the last couple of chairs have only stayed 2 years. So and then you were going to talk about Wayne recognition and
so yeah, why don't we talk about that? So sounds like there's three celebrations of sorts that are all intended to happen around the same time in January. So I had never been to the T, and I didn't really understand what that was until you clarified it for me. Jessica's referred to it as a number of times.
Yeah, and it stopped because of COVID and hasn't totally re-energized, but this seemed like a good way to do it. And typically, although she and I have been talking because the second week in January now is because Martin Luther King Day might not have as much people come out. But normally you're recognizing, town volunteers or select board members or like 1 year actually they recognized the cooks from Jericho Elementary School. Over the years, and we also had art to go with that.
So who technically hosts the tea?
Jessica, the town clerk's office.
The town clerk's office.
And that's because it also is, the initial idea was when Jessica first broached it, and Bob Penn was still on the board, so that was a long time ago, that it was for the public to come and meet folks that are part of the, that they vote for.
Mm-hmm.
And volunteers and committees and things like that. And so folks who are running for office, Jessica also makes it easier. You have your petitions there, people can sign petitions for your, to be on ballot, things like that. And like 1 year we had the recognition for John Schulenberger when he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that was focused on them. Another time it's some of the town history and the volumes. One of the woman who wrote the first volume, they had a big spread on her. So it had different things, but all of it has always had the petitions for people who are running for office, and those people usually come. So I suggested that we do Wayne this year because there were a lot of people on Front Porch Forum and others who emailed him specifically from the public. And that's the only public venue that there is.
Oh, yeah.
To honor him, because even with our get together of all the committees in January, that's all the committees.
Yeah.
It's not a
Sure,
public.
it's not the people who put them,
Right. And
put them on the
and
board.
the staff here having a luncheon forum, that's just, the town.
Yeah.
Function.
Yep, that's fine. I have, Joe, I know we all kind of weighed in on dates. As far as I'm concerned, the committee, so last year for the first time, we brought together all the committees at the community center. We had a potluck dinner. To my knowledge, it was the first time
You
that.
don't want me bringing what I make.
Sounds like there could be alcohol in it.
I married a real good cook for a reason.
All right, you can put her on notice. She's gonna have an assignment coming up.
Is this the 20th and the 14th date we were looking
Well,
at?
that's what we were talking about. So we can take that off the table until we decide when the tea, and because I think higher order of priority is Wayne's recognition and reinvigorating that event.
And of course, turns out, you have a thing on the 14th, but we also looked at that and as Jessica said, because it is a Martin Luther King 3-day weekend, it's unlikely that people are gonna.
Yeah, they're gonna
be busy.
Can't
But then, so then she got the 21st, but that impacts John.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to miss it, but my dad's turning 90 that weekend. Gotta be there. So if you decide to have the tea on that weekend, I think Wayne knows I honor him deeply, and I'll.
Yeah, I don't know what the early June, let's see,
I'll
because
take him out for
that'd
beer.
be January 7th. Yeah, I don't.
Which
know.
would come really
That's-
quickly on the heels of
Holidays and people are kind
holidays.
of festivity out by this.
Festivity'd out. I agree. But Joe, so you do know the committee get together was great. So got as many representatives from all the committees in town to get to know each other, report out on their priorities for the upcoming year, introduce new committee members. I thought it was great. We got the ale and bean donated beer and yeah.
So did you discuss something sober and discuss something under the influence? Is that how it works?
It was great. We had alternatives. We had non-alcoholic alternatives.
Yeah. And a variety of food, and then you ordered pizza, didn't you?
Yeah, what do we have? Lasagna, pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I thought it was a big hit.
I'm gonna pizza place across the street here.
Oh, is that what it's gonna be?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm supposed to be takeout.
good,
Yeah,
good.
Got approval.
I'm wondering
That's great.
when.
Right across from Chitty Mills.
Yeah,
I was disappointed when the bagel folks decided not to do it. 'Cause that was one of the
It's another
first-
Stone's.
Yes.
Oh, there's another Stone's Throw. Hey, that's really good.
any idea when they're planning to
I
open?
don't
or-
know, but they want to they want to do delivery. That's my first question. You can do delivery? No, they can't facilitate people that are dependable to deliver pizza, so.
Wow,
Yeah, I would love to have delivery here.
Oh, yeah, it
That would
really
be
mean for
great.
you.
Yeah.
that would be great.
Do we need an ES tonight?
I'm sorry.
Do we need an?
Yes, we do need a quick executive session.
Okay.
Yeah, I have something to add to, so for executive session, it
Okay.
would probably fall under.
You filled the warrants, right?
Yeah, we just.
Warrant you just.
Oh, yeah.
I signed mine.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Catherine, I need you to sign. This is the letter in support of the grant. Oh, and then actually, Catherine and Eric, if you could sign off on these declarations, That's the, Jessica wants to officially file the declaration of inclusion.
Oh, okay.
And I'll have to get Wayne's. So the, select board approved the declaration of inclusion that was referenced, in the town plan.
I said.
And so I'll have to have Wayne sign it, because he was
Do you have both?
he was the
copies, Diane, or
selectman
just
at
the
that
top?
point. Say again?
Both copies or just the top?
Yeah, if you could do both, that would be great.
That was in the packet.
I don't know if the declaration itself, no, it wasn't.
It's been a long time ago.
Declaration of inclusion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, it is. Oh, good.
Mhm.
What's on the?
Confusing, down stuff. Okay, we good?
We are good.
With that, I will make a motion to enter into executive session because premature disclosure of the information would be detrimental to parties involved for reasons involving personnel and legal. And I'd like to invite John Abbott to this executive session.
I accept the invitation.
Do we have a second?
Okay, we'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Okay, 9:37.